Chapter 915 Senior Sister Shui's Request. Chapter 915 Senior Sister Shui's Request. Ling Han returned to his rooms, but merely sat for a short while before a knock sounded on the doors to his courtyard. He walked over and peeked through the crack between the doors. Then he could not help but feel a headache coming on. Shui Yenyu. His debt collector had come. What was he to do now? Xiao, without waiting for him to decide what he was to do, Shui Yenyu directly somersaulted inside over the walls. Her beautiful face was filled with an air of violence as she looked icily at him. Ling Han could not help but swallow. With a leap like that, her breasts were heaving heavily. It was really alluring. He really was not perverted, but because he had just had a taste of those beautiful breasts the day before and clearly knew their size, he could not help but direct his eyes there. Senior Sister Shui, for you to barge into the residence of another like this, it isn't very proper, is it? He asked weakly. Then the fact you peeked on the day the women entered the black jade pool is something good. Shui Yenyu forced out a counter through gritted teeth. 2 spots of bright color rose up on her beautiful cheeks, elegant as water so much that one's heart would melt. Demon, she really was a demon. Ling Han missed Hu Niu very much. If Hu Niu was still here, she would definitely jump out now to stand guard in front of him right now, wouldn't she? But now he would have to face this kind of temptation on his own. Unfortunately, her power exceeded his not just by 100 times, so he did not even have the chance to force himself on her. If he wanted to become a beast, he would only become worse than a beast. So sad. Senior Sister, this really is a misunderstanding. Ling Han said seriously. Even if it is a misunderstanding, would that change the fact that you peeked on me and Shui Yenyu uttered painfully. How pure and spotless she was, yet her breasts had actually been attacked by Ling Han. This was practically enough to fill her with the urge to commit suicide. But even if she was going to commit suicide, she would kill Ling Han first. How could she allow him to live on free and easy? Ling Han breathed a sigh and said, I am a man, I shall bear the responsibility. Shui Yenyu humphed. How do you plan to bear responsibility? You can't possibly think of marrying me, right? Then you would really still be dreaming. Ling Han smiled calmly and said, though I have neither authority nor influence now, and my power isn't all that strong either, but in less than 100 years, I will change all that. Senior Sister, you have no intention to marry me, and I have long since had my own beloved as well. However, I can use another means to compensate you. Where had this guy gotten such confidence from? With his talent, it was indeed not difficult for him to advance into the immortal level. But if he wanted to ascend, merely the 4 levels of the mountain river tier would take at least 1,000 years' time, and that was already the standard of a super genius. Any other person would have to spend several 100,000 years to accomplish that. In a mere 100 years, what can you do? Shui Yenyu waved her hand dismissively and said, there is no need to be so troublesome. My request is very simple. In the time we are in the academy, you and I shall pretend to be husband and wife. Pooh! Ling Han choked. Your thoughts are really too far off the wall, right? Just now you just said in your dreams, and now you actually propose that we pretend to be husband and wife. What the fuck? Don't misunderstand. I only want to make use of you to get rid of a person, Shui Yenyu explained. She did not want Ling Han to misunderstand her. Zhao Luan. Ling Han was suddenly struck with a realization. Shui Yenyu nodded. This was her nightmare that had always been entangling her and was impossible to get rid of. Ling Han snickered and said, you have really given me a dilemma. Not only is senior brother Zhao in the higher levels of the mountain river tier, he is also the son of a great general. Do you think I can stand against him? Perhaps our matter will just have been announced, and my dead body would be found in the streets on the next day. You have a spatial god tool. Would you die so easily? Shui Yenyu questioned calmly. Anxiety sprouted in Ling Han's heart immediately, but his expression was unchanged, and he asked, "What spatial god tool?" "You know very well yourself." Shui Yinyu said, "Do you agree or not?" "If I don't," Ling Han probed, "I will kill you, then kill myself. In any case, I cannot bear constantly being pestered by Xiaolun, so it would be just right to free me of my misery," Shui Yinyu said serenely. It was obvious that the thought of suicide had not just suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Abruptly, pity rose up in Ling Han's heart. Just how much did she despise Xiaolun that it would cause a beauty like her to end her life just to absolve herself from him? He thought for a moment, then replied, "All right, I agree. However, it is not because of your threat. Instead, it is because I feel that no matter how much you like someone, you should not use forceful means." Shui Yenyu was surprised. She looked meaningfully at Ling Han for a while, then nodded and said, "Thank you." It had been a deal at first, and she naturally had no need to thank him, but it was a different matter now. "All right, Zhao Luan is a well-known genius. Furthermore, he is the son of a great general. Why do you hate him so much?" Even Ling Han would have a keen curiosity for gossip. Shui Yenyu thought for a while, then answered, "This man plots a lot and has a dark personality. You would feel like you were sharing the lair of a poisonous snake when you were with him, and you would shiver in fear. Previously, someone spoke behind his back, and it just so happened that he was there. However, he merely smiled and said he did not mind, but on the second day, that person's whole family had been massacred, completely." Ling Han could not help but shiver. So cruel? It was merely a few unpleasant words, so was there a need to do something so ruthless? However, that person had only said a few unpleasant words, and that was the consequence. He, meanwhile, was going to snatch prey from the tiger's mouth. He would have stolen his sweetheart, so what kind of vengeance would he suffer from? Afraid now. Shui Yenyu smirked. "A bit. After all, the Zhao clan has too much authority, and I am not able to stand against them at this moment." Ling Han nodded. This was nothing to be feel ashamed about. Even if the great General Zhao was only in the minor levels of the heavenly body tier, that surpassed him by how many cultivation levels again? However confident Ling Han was, he did not think 100 years would be enough for him to turn the tables and suppress the Zhao clan. Even if you're afraid, it is useless. You only have two options. Either you die by my hand, or you die by Zhao Luan's hand, Shui Yinyu stated coldly. She was really indifferent. Ling Han showed a smile and said, "I won't die." There were so many responsibilities on his shoulders, so how could he die here? It would be best for you to be confident. However, if you die, I will remain a widow for you for the rest of my life, Shui Yenyu declared serenely. Ling Han could not help but feel gloomy and exclaimed, "I'm not dead yet, all right? Additionally, since you have that kind of preparation, how about you stay tonight and serve in bed?" Shua. A treasured sword was immediately held threateningly at Ling Han's neck. Shui Yenyu said coldly, "The reason I set up a false betrothal with you is because you're already a dead man. You'll die for my sake, and I will remain a widow because of you. This is my debt to you. But if you want to disrespect me, that would be forcing me to kill you." Ling Han raised his hands in surrender with a smile and said, "That was a joke. AI, though we are false lovers, we would still have to pretend to be intimate on the surface. Or how would we make others believe us?" Shui Yenyu stared at him for a while before she finally withdrew her sword and said, "In front of others, I will give you the respect you deserve, but don't think you can overstep your limits." All right. Ling Han rubbed his neck. Thankfully, his skin was thick enough, or blood would definitely have spilled from the friction. Shui Yenyu felt like going crazy. He was obviously going to become an enemy of the Zhao clan immediately. So why did this guy not even have the slightest feeling of anxiety? To be honest, she had thought the whole night yesterday before she finally gritted her teeth and made this decision. The Zhao clan What a colossal great force! The mere thought of them would cause one to suffocate. From tomorrow onwards, you would be embroiled in this vortex, she said. Whatever, Ling Han said carelessly. Shui Yenyu suddenly felt her heart soften and said, I'll give you another 3 days. 3 days later, I will announce the news that we have made a private pledge to be married. Chapter 9:16. Here Comes Trouble. Chapter 9:16. Here Comes Trouble. Shui Yenyu left swiftly. Ling Han stroked his chin. I got myself another wife again. It was a pity that he could only look but not touch. She was much too powerful. He smiled. Although Shui Yenyu possessed exquisite beauty and was a truly fascinating character, his emotion towards her was simply admiration. At the moment, he was completely engrossed in martial arts, and even if he were to be distracted, it would also be by alchemy. Where would he find time for romance? 3 days. It might just as well be like that they would simply spend the next 3 days leisurely before facing the storm head-on. However, such thoughts of Ling Han never came through. It was said that the Luo brothers had been waiting for Ling Han to sell alchemical pills again. They naturally did not manage to catch him red-handed, which made the two brothers restless. They eventually decided to lodge a complaint against Ling Han they had witnessed, after all, so Ling Han still wouldn't be able to escape. It was just that he had only sold alchemical pills that one time, and the quantity wasn't large either. They reckoned that it would be difficult to finish Ling Han in one move. They approached an elder of the Luo clan based in the academy, Luo Kaifeng, and let him call upon a law enforcement elder, then charged up to Ling Han's residence. The appearance of the law enforcement elder naturally startled quite a number of students, and they trailed behind the 4 people, wanting to know who was going to be that unlucky student today. They were heading straight to the courtyard where Ling Han was residing. Bang! With a signal from Luo Kaifeng, Luo Ba, and Luo Lai, the 2 brothers each struck 1 foot out and directly kicked open the door. Ling Han, who just happened to be cultivating in the courtyard, opened his eyes and looked at the 2 brothers with a smile before saying, Why, have you gathered enough true origin stones already and wish to fight me? You won't get the chance. Luo Ba retorted coldly, Ling Han, do you know your crime? Luo Kaifeng walked in, bearing a solemn expression on his face. He was an elite at the minor levels of the Sun-Moon tier, and presently had no intention of concealing his cultivation level. A sun and moon were displayed behind him. The sun had taken shape, but the moon was obviously incomplete. It was clear that his cultivation level was that of the late stage of minor levels. However, it was indeed terrifying when an elite of the Sun-Moon tier displayed his might. All the surrounding students not only felt suffocated, but also felt intense pain in their chests. Ling Han stood up, slightly bowed to the 2 elders, and said, Greetings, elders! Then he said, I do not know what crime I have committed. Still trying to play dumb? Luo Kaifeng rebuked coldly. He took matters into his own hands, acting as if he was the law enforcement elder. Let me ask you, did you sell a replenishing spirit pill at the United Forests Pharmacy last month? Yes. Ling Han nodded, and suddenly came to a realization. On that day, the man I had caught sight of was Luo Lai indeed. However, if he intended to use this matter to pin the blame on me, then he would have to be disappointed. Luo Kaifeng was stunned. He had thought that Ling Han would deny it, and didn't expect that this brat would actually admit it so bluntly. He couldn't help but sneer. It is even better that you have admitted it yourself. Then, this would be proof of your crime. There's no need for even a trial. The law enforcement elder's name was Wei Qianshu. He was somewhat dissatisfied with Luo Kaifeng, but since Ling Han admitted to selling the Academy's replenishing spirit pill, this was indeed clearly a violation of the Academy's rules. Being a law enforcement elder, he ought to impose the punishment accordingly. Ling Han, the Academy clearly stipulates that selling replenishing spirit pills bestowed upon you by the Academy to external parties is strictly prohibited. Do you have anything else to say? He asked. When the surrounding students, who had all climbed onto the top of the courtyard wall, heard these words, they trembled with fear. It had turned out to be that. Sheesh! How could this Ling Han be so stupid? He was clearly the #1 student among this year's new recruits, and had the potential of becoming a 4-star genius in the future. But he would actually risk it all for a mere few replenishing spirit pills. Rules were rules, so no matter how much of a genius Ling Han was, this time he would definitely be severely punished by the Academy. Ling Han, you'd better kneel down. Luo Lai sneered coldly. He had been waiting to say these words for almost an entire month. Ling Han cast a disdainful glance at Luo Lai and said, Hold your horses. You are merely a student. What right do you have to be making a ruckus here? Have you no regard for the law enforcement elder? *T, he was doing it again. Luo Lai was so angry that his chest was trembling. This was the case before Ling Han had made use of the left minister to suppress him, saying that Luo Lai had no regard for the left minister. Now he was acting like this once more. How could this lowlife from a small world have such a sly mouth? He forced himself to calm down as he hollered at Ling Han. You can't escape your fate today. What's the point of you putting up an act? Presently, Ling Han was the one in a tight spot. He had no reason to be anxious. No need to get fired up. Luo Ba quickly squeezed his brother's shoulder before shooting Ling Han a cold gaze and said, Ling Han, since you have admitted to illegally selling alchemical pills of the Academy yourself, what do you have to say to save yourself? Wei Qianshu frowned and appeared upset. I am the law enforcement elder. What right have you got to butt in on this matter in front of me? Yet Luo Kaifeng actually patted his shoulder and smilingly said, Brother Wei, I owe you a favor for this. Our Luo clan will definitely repay you in the future. Wei Qianshu felt apprehensive. Being a lone cultivator himself, he was naturally no match for the Luo clan. Besides, Ling Han did violate the rules and deserved to be punished. In that case, he might just as well allow the Luo brothers to bask in the limelight. It was no loss to him, after all. With this in mind, he simply let Luo Kaifeng take the initiative and regarded himself as an observer watching the show. Of course, Luo Kaifeng was happy to have it this way. The reason why he had brought Wei Qianshu over was because there had to be a legitimate cause for his actions. The Academy had its own rules, and the enforcement of the rules had to be carried out by law enforcement elders. Ling Han smiled disdainfully and said, You guys really know nothing better than to simply accuse people. Since when did I say that I have sold alchemical pills of the Academy? Haha, do you think that we are 3-year-olds? You have just admitted that you did sell replenishing spirit pills to United Forests Pharmacy, Luo Ba said, pointing at Ling Han. That is correct. Ling Han nodded again. However, selling replenishing spirit pills and illegally selling alchemical pills of the Academy are 2 different things. Also, stop pointing your finger at me. It is very rude and will make me feel irritated. Luo Ba had gotten extremely confused with all the twisting of the words. Still pointing at Ling Han, he said, You'd better stop going around in circles. No matter what, it won't change the fact that you have committed a crime. Pah! Ling Han directly slapped him across the face. What kind of strength did he possess? Luo Ba, being on the receiving end, practically couldn't react when his face was slapped. The hit directly caused him to lose 3 teeth as they flew out of his mouth. As the slap made its impact, the surroundings fell into silence. This was just too bold. It was already a serious offense to illegally sell alchemical pills of the Academy, yet he even dared to slap Luo Ba in front of an elder of the Luo clan now. He had to possess the guts of a true dragon, being as fearless as the gods. You! Luo Ba felt angry and humiliated at the same time. He was one of the 3 great elites of the younger generation in the imperial capital, yet he was actually slapped across the face in public. Even if Ling Han were to be decimated, would it rid him of the humiliation that he had suffered? I have already told you not to point your finger at me. No need to thank me. As a senior brother disciple, I am obliged to teach you how to behave, Ling Han said softly, appearing extremely relaxed. I am going to kill you. Luo Ba pounced forward. He had to personally defeat Ling Han. Otherwise, he would never be able to hold his head high in this lifetime. Pa! Ling Han gave him another slap across the face, which directly sent him flying out of the area. You still want to fight with me when you didn't pay any money? Dream on. Pooh! Everyone just burst out laughing. Chapter 9:17. The misunderstanding resolves itself. Chapter 9:17. The misunderstanding resolves itself. Luo Ba was pitiful indeed. Everyone felt rueful. Having received 2 slaps in public, it was like he had been nailed onto the pillar of shame. He would never be able to rid himself of the humiliation. However, this new first-place student was bold indeed. Not only were his comprehension of martial arts, the strength of his spirit and combat skills superior to others, but he was also formidable in actual combat. However, Luo Kaifeng was just standing on one side. Was it really a good idea for you to embarrass the Luo clan like this? Sure enough, Luo Kaifeng's face was evidently dark now. He did not stop Luo Ba from attacking, because he had wanted the latter to personally regain his honor. Still, he had not expected the gap in cultivation level between Luo Ba and Ling Han to be so wide. As one of the top 3 elites of the imperial capital's younger generation, he was actually no match for a lowlife from a small world. Who would believe it? Since it was impossible for Luo Ba to rival Ling Han, Luo Kaifeng could only make a move himself. Otherwise, the Luo clan's reputation would really be tarnished beyond redemption. Humph! First, you illegally sold alchemical pills of the academy. Later, you hurt your classmates. Such a person is not worthy to remain in the academy, he said in a low voice, with his terrifying spiritual pressure immediately directed towards Ling Han. Immortals cultivated the strength of the spirit. Furthermore, he was also an elite of the Sun-Moon tier. The strength of his spirit was many times more powerful than Ling Han's, so under such an impact, the latter suddenly felt a mountain of pressure coming down at him from the top of his head, seemingly about to crush his bones. Only by leaning forward was he able to withstand the pressure. However, Ling Han was well aware that the other party was purposely oppressing him, trying to make him bow or even kneel. Given his lofty and unyielding character, how could he allow himself to be humiliated? Ling Han stood upright, and pa, the godly bones in his body cackled violently. Was fighting against Luo Kaifeng's spiritual pressure. A cultivator of the Sun-Moon tier was incredibly strong indeed. Even a mere imposing aura was enough to make Ling Han sweat profusely, while his eyes were bloodshot and veins were all the more throbbing furiously. Strictly speaking, it would have been impossible for a cultivator of the Shattering Void tier to resist the spiritual pressure of another at the level of the Sun-Moon tier. The gap between these 2 levels was just too great. However, Ling Han was just too proud and stubborn, could accept being defeated or even killed, but he would never kneel down to another. The crowd had initially been indifferent, but soon expressed their amazement by an acceptance of Ling Han. This guy's willpower was truly quite impressive. The sounds of bones cracking were clearly transmitted from within Ling Han's body, while sweat was flowing from his forehead like a small stream, drenching his clothes wet. Yet he stood proud and upright like the peak of a mountain, his spine not even the tiniest bit bent. Who wouldn't admire him? So you would rather die than plead guilty? Luo Kaifeng bellowed. He really had to make Ling Han miserable today. Only in this way could he make the others forget Luo Ba's disgrace of being slapped in the face twice. I did not commit any offense, so why should I plead guilty? Ling Han boldly retorted. Xiao, Just at this moment, a figure flew over from a distance. It was a woman of peerless beauty and appeared to be about 20 years old. She was the embodiment of a refined scholar. However, she currently has excitement written all over her face. Ling Han! Ling Han! She was already calling out to him from afar. Hey, isn't she ghouling you? One of the 3 great beauties of the imperial capital? I heard that she was exceptionally talented in the field of alchemy. She had already been recruited under the Alchemy Institution quite some time ago. We have an alchemy institution in our academy. Haha, there are too few students in the Alchemy Institution. Moreover, each of the students there have always buried themselves in the study of alchemical pills. Indeed, not many people know about the existence of that institution. However, the Alchemy Institution has a special status, so everyone must give them face. Everyone nodded in agreement. Alchemists belong to a special group with superior status. Therefore, they couldn't be rashly offended. Gu Lingyu ran into the courtyard, not even casting a glance at her surroundings, and directly said, "The replenishing spirit pill, which you have concocted, was 30% more effective than the common ones. Is it that you have improved the recipe, or have you concocted it using a special alchemy technique? I have investigated your background. You came from a small world and had just arrived in the imperial capital less than a month ago. It should not be possible to improve the recipe, so you must have a special alchemy technique, am I right?" She said so much in a single breath before abruptly stopping. She then looked at the other people with a somewhat blank expression and asked, "Hey, do you guys have some issue here?" It was strangely crowded and lively here. Everyone was speechless only. Now, did you realize that something wasn't right here? However, Gu Lingyu had just revealed an amazing piece of information. Ling Han was able to concoct alchemical pills. Fuck, he was the one who concocted that replenishing spirit pill. It was no wonder that he had admitted to selling alchemical pills, but denied that he had illegally sold alchemical pills of the Academy. How could they not let him sell the alchemical pills that he had concocted himself? The Academy had no such rules. Luo Kaifeng was suddenly speechless. Wei Qianshu even snorted heavily, giving the Luo brothers a stern look. They were making a false accusation, which would also be subject to punishment by the Academy. Given these words of Gu Lingyu, what more could Luo Kaifeng say? He could only blame the Luo brothers for not having investigated the basic facts before coming forward to make a malicious accusation against another person. Now, how could this situation be salvaged? A broad smile flashed across Ling Han's face as he said, "Senior sister, I need to deal with some matters first. I will talk to you later." "What is it? I will help you." Gu Lingyu appeared to be filled with impatience. In her opinion, what matter could be more important than a discussion on alchemy? Ling Han responded with an "oh" before he further added, "These 2 accused me of stealing the Academy's replenishing spirit pill and then illegally selling it to outsiders." Gu Lingyu immediately became furious and looked at the brothers with disdain. She said, "In the future, you shall not be allowed to consume any alchemical pills concocted by the Alchemy Institution. To actually make false accusation against an alchemist would obviously make the person an enemy of all alchemists." The Luo brothers became extremely depressed, no matter how highly they thought of Ling Han. How could they possibly think that a cultivator barely over 20 years old who had come from a small world could actually cultivate both martial arts and alchemy? This strike had really knocked them silly. Ling Han coughed and said, "Elder, since these 2 people have wrongly accused me, what should be done based on the Academy's rules?" Wei Qianshu couldn't help but feel awkward. Had it been another person, he would have acted impartially and imposed the appropriate punishment. What was required to be done would be executed accordingly. However, Luo Kaifeng was just beside him. He would need to consider the reputation of the Luo clan, right? But they were being observed in public. Could he openly show favor towards the Luo clan? Luo Kaifeng saw all this and said hastily, Luo Ba and Luo Lai also didn't do anything wrong. After all, they had really witnessed the sale of alchemical pills transacted by Ling Han. They were having the Academy's best interest in mind when they reported the matter to the Law Enforcement Committee. Right, so they could even earn merit based on a false accusation. Ling Han spoke up calmly. If this elder is right, then wouldn't I have suffered in vain? Had this senior sister not come over and testified as my witness, wouldn't I already have been persecuted to death by this elder? To think that I have passed through 8 levels of the Academy's assessment and have the potential of becoming a 4-star genius in the future. If I am hounded to death, then wouldn't it be a huge loss to the Academy? Luo Kaifeng couldn't stop a muscle in his face from twitching. He had seen people who were thick-skinned, but it was the first time for him to meet someone like Ling Han. Yet, what the other party had said was indeed true. It was just that he was being too brazen about it. Wei Qianshu asked, "Then what do you want?" He decided to become the peacemaker between the two parties. Ling Han beamed and said, "If you give me some 8,000 to 10,000 true origin stones, then I will definitely forget this unpleasant event. Otherwise, I will fight to no end for the Academy to give me a proper justification." Chapter 918, Compensation for Damage. Chapter 918, Compensation for Damage. Everyone couldn't help but admit that Ling Han indeed had a strong pride, and his pride was something to admire. To actually stand against an elite of the Sun-Moon tier, it was practically enough to make all of them kneel down in submission because of his courage. But with these words from Ling Han, he instantly made a muscle twitch in their cheeks. Aside from pride, you're still a little fucking shameless, aren't you? Would anyone really praise themselves like that? However, to actually dare to blackmail the Luo clan, merely that point alone would make all of them kneel down in submission for his boldness. Luo Kaifeng had a dark expression on his face. The Luo clan was a 4th-tier clan, possessing deep roots, and it was definitely not a big deal for them to hand out 10,000 true origin stones, which to anyone else would seem like an astronomical number. But whom did Ling Han think he was? He was merely a weak cultivator of the Shattering Void tier, and if even Shattering Void tier cultivators could extort the Luo clan out of such a large sum of money, wouldn't the Luo clan instantly bankrupt? Yet the situation now was extremely unfavorable for the Luo clan. If money could deal with this impending disaster, they had to spend it. 8,000 to 10,000 is too much. Luo Kaifeng uttered darkly, "You did not suffer any real injury. At most, we can offer you a compensation of 100 true origin stones." Hiss! A great many students had their mouths wide open in shock. Ling Han had really succeeded in his extortion attempt. That was the Luo clan, a 4th-tier clan. What kind of concept was a 4th-tier clan? Even the left and right ministers and the 7 great generals could only be considered 2nd-tier clans, so wasn't a 4th-tier clan awesome enough? But now it was great. The majestic Luo clan actually bowed their heads in front of a shattering void tier cultivator from a small world. TSK, 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 what fun! Ling Han shook his head and said, "How could that be fine? If it were not for the fact that senior sister Gu came just in time, I would have been long suppressed and turned into dust by this elder's presence. And that isn't considered real damage? 5,000 true origin stones. Even one less would not be accepted. In alchemy, Gu Lingyu was a genius, but in the area of human relations, she was obviously much too lacking." She immediately nodded and said, "After bullying us alchemists, compensating with a few true origin stones would naturally be appropriate." This senior sister disciple was not too bad. She was very cooperative. Ling Han knew that it was impossible to turn the situation around to kill the Luo brothers. Thus, he simply decided to get some benefits. No matter what, he was not going to experience a loss. Luo Kaifeng practically wanted to commit murder. You were bullied? It was their Luo clan that was being bullied, all right? Luo Ba had suffered a slap like that, and now his face was completely swollen. So why didn't you mention anything about that? He naturally did not take Gu Lingyu to heart, but did not dare to overlook the alchemy institution standing behind her. Those people were traditional and pedantic and had strange tempers. He humphed and said, 500 true origin stones. 4,000. 1,000. 3,000. 2,000. Deal. With a wave of Luo Kaifeng's hand, a great number of true origin stones scattered out. Ling Han was naturally not going to be reserved, and directly stored these precious stones into the Black Tower. Now he was only going to get some benefits, but when he was powerful enough, it would not be so easily settled. We're leaving. Luo Kaifeng shouted at the Luo brothers. These two pieces of trash, if it were not for them, what need would there be for him to swallow his anger in front of a cultivator merely in the shattering void tier? The Luo brothers did not dare say a word, and obediently followed him like children that had done something wrong as they left. On the wall, all the students scattered as well. They really had something they could boast about now. Wei Qianshu clicked his tongue in amazement. Gu Lingyu's prompt arrival had naturally solved a dilemma for Ling Han. But even if she had not arrived in time, Ling Han concocting an alchemical pill in public would actually also solve the issue. This kid was really capable of tolerance. It was obvious that he had long since been assured of victory, yet made use of this opportunity to give Luo Ba a thrashing first. Then he proceeded to blackmail the Luo clan for a sizable sum, and the Luo clan could not even show their ire. His courage was astounding. To be honest, even Wei Qianshu himself dared not become enemies with the Luo clan. Apparently, not only did the Luo clan have 10 elites of the Sun Moon tier, their grand elder was even a super elite in the higher levels of the Sun Moon tier. Without advancing to the Heavenly Body tier, there were practically none that could match him. Who would be so outrageously bold to dare to take advantage of the situation and set a trap for the Luo clan? Young man, behave yourself, Wei Qianshu said, a hint of worry in his eyes. This time, Ling Han was indeed very pleased. Not only had he struck Luo Ba, he had even gotten a hold of a great number of true origin stones. However, would the Luo clan simply let the matter go like this? Thank you for your advice, Elder. I am well aware, Ling Han said respectfully. He naturally could differentiate between good intentions and false kindness. Wei Qianshu nodded and left swiftly. Ling Han, tell me, have you improved the pill recipe? Or is it that you have a unique alchemical concoction technique? Gu Lingyu's eyes shone brightly. She would forget everything when it was something that concerned alchemy. Ling Han smiled. I do indeed have a special alchemical concoction technique. Can you teach me? Gu Lingyu asked immediately. Ling Han hesitated. This woman had really practiced alchemy so much that she had forgotten all about the ways of the world. What alchemist would reveal to an outsider their alchemy techniques? Even among a master and a disciple, the master would still keep some part secret. Ling Han did not hide anything from his 2 alchemy disciples, though. Still, this kind of technique was something that he had created on his own, and only he was capable of exhibiting the might of the 3 Fire Guide to its maximum. Though you have done me a favor, you want to learn the 3 Fire Guide just with that. That was definitely impossible. However, Ling Han could tell that this woman was an absolute fanatic about alchemy. It was not that she did not know the limits of decorum, but rather that her whole head was filled with alchemy, and she had completely no idea that some requests were too much to ask. Ling Han thought for a moment, then said, Then let's learn from one another. He could not possibly teach her the 3 Fire Guide when they had just met, but since she was so fanatic about alchemy, he could have a discussion about alchemical techniques with her. Gu Lingyu naturally agreed gladly. The 2 of them discussed alchemy techniques. Gu Lingyu naturally benefited much from the reasoning behind the 3 Fire Guide, and Ling Han was also inspired. After all, her achievements in alchemy were not inferior to his, so there was a considerable effect of complementing each other. In this way, Ling Han had also switched from his initial intention of giving a few tips to a discussion between two equals. Without their noticing it, the sky had darkened while they talked. The Luo clan residence. The Luo brothers were kneeling in the main hall. The patriarch of the Luo clan, Luo Hongdao, was seated in front of them, his expression dark. "Do you know why I had you two punished?" Luo Hongdao asked. Luo Ba said, "We have brought embarrassment to the Luo clan." Luo Hongdao shook his head. "That is only one part of it. More importantly, the way that the two of you handled this matter has disappointed me too much. You two actually did not understand the complete situation and rushed to set up a trap. From the beginning, the two of you had already lost." "Yes." The Luo brothers nodded firmly. Even without the appearance of Guling Yu, Ling Han would still have the means to prove himself, though it would be slightly more troublesome. "If you are going to move, head straight for the fatal point. Do not allow the enemy any chance of freeing himself," Luo Hongdao uttered sinisterly. The Luo brothers nodded. "Bar, do you have the confidence that you can defeat that lowlife?" Luo Hongdao asked once more. Luo Ba very much wanted to act forceful for once, but after suffering 2 consecutive slaps from Ling Han, his confidence had also been slapped gone. But in front of Lord Patriarch, how could he admit his fear? He quickly puffed out his chest and declared, "Yes." His attitude was exhibited, but his tone was lacking in certainty. "Humph." Luo Hongdao humphed in dissatisfaction again. "What did I teach you just now? Hasn't one bit of it sunk inside your head? Putting aside the fact that you had already been horribly defeated by that lowlife previously, do you know the real origins of that lowlife?" "Real origins?" The Luo brothers' expressions were blank. Ling Han was merely a lowlife that had ascended from a small world, so was there a need for them to understand his origins? "Idiots!" Luo Hongdao rebuked harshly. "That lowlife is not so simple. He is the monarch of a country that had opened the sky." "Pooh!" Instantly the Luo brothers choked out in shock. Chapter 919 Luo Clan's Plot. Chapter 919 Luo Clan's Plot. Opening the sky. How could that be possible? In the history of our chaotic star's majestic empire, we have never had records of such a feat. Neither of the brothers dared to believe this. Luo Hongdao frowned slightly with displeasure and said, "If it never happened before, does it mean it wouldn't happen? Then what reason would the word miracle have for existing? Moreover, there may be none who opened the sky before in our empire, but what about other places then?" The Luo brothers were dumbstruck. This was something they dared not even imagine. Long ago, more than 300,000 years ago, there was a great Sioux empire that ascended. The monarch of this nation had astounding talent. He had reached perfection level in the mountain river tier in a short few hundred years' time. Hiss! Hearing such words from Luo Hongdao, the Luo brothers inhaled sharply. Finishing cultivation all the way up to the mountain river tier in a few hundred years was really too amazing. One had to know that even Zhao Luan, who was known as an absolute genius, was already over 500 years old at present, yet he was merely in the higher levels of the mountain river tier. Why are there no records of this great Sioux empire? Luo Ba asked. That is because this great Sioux empire was subordinate to a small royal empire. Yet the monarch actually hid his identity and entered our empire. He even studied a few hundred years in the Scarlet Heaven Academy, Luo Hongdao explained. Great Sioux Empire? Could it be that that person is the one who left behind the spiritual imprint in the 3rd stage of the White Star Tower? Suran. Luo Ba suddenly came to a realization. Correct. Luo Hongdao nodded. But why were there practically no legends about him? Luo Ba asked curiously. because this person actually snuck into the national treasury, intending to steal a great treasure of our empire. Thus, the Empress has placed a taboo and erased all records of his existence. However, the tool spirit of the White Star Tower is independent, and no one could suppress this person in a battle of the same cultivation level. Hence, that place has become the only place that still proves he once existed, Luo Hongdao revealed. Luo brothers hissed through their teeth. To actually dare enter into the national treasury and attempt to steal something. This person's courage was really massive to the point of being nature-defying. The reason I told you of this event is to let you know that you must 100% understand your opponent before you want to take them down. Otherwise, you would likely become the ones who would be taken down, Luo Hongdao said seriously. Lord Patriarch, we understand, the Luo brothers quickly answered respectfully. Bar, I shall ask you again, do you have the confidence to battle with that lowlife? Luo Hongdao stared fixedly at Luo Ba, his eyes sharp. Luo Ba's heart clenched, and he answered loudly. For the sake of the clan, this Luo Ba is willing to climb a mountain of blades or descend into a sea of flames. Ha 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 ha. Luo Hongdao laughed loudly. He abruptly slammed a hand on the table and exclaimed, Good! He tossed out a red-colored stone and said, This is a blood-tear stone. In myths, a real divine beast was wounded, and as its blood and tears intermixed, it left behind an indestructible aura in this stone. Refine this, and your battle prowess will definitely charge up to 20 stars. At that time, you can have a duel to the death with that lowlife, and you definitely have to kill this person then. Luo Hongdao's expression was sinister. He had not taken to heart a mere sum of 2,000 true origin stones. But this lowlife from a small world actually dared extort the Luo clan. Even he was truly enraged by this. If it was not for the fact that the Scarlet Heaven Academy was there, he would even want to directly send someone to kill Ling Han. But now he could only go in a large circle. Meanwhile, Luo Ba was elated. The blood-tear stone definitely was an ultimate treasure for shattering void-tier cultivators. With the boost of the aura of a divine beast, the power behind his every strike would increase by a good few times. Furthermore, this was an eternal boost. Naturally, though, the higher his cultivation level was, the smaller the effects this additional boost would have. Even so, his battle prowess would still be able to easily advance to 20 stars, and it would definitely be no problem for him to suppress Ling Han then. Luo Lai's expression was one of envy meanwhile. He, too, was a genius of the Luo clan, but he was ranked below Luo Ba. Whatever benefits there were, it would be Luo Ba who would enjoy them first before his turn came. If there was not enough for two, then he would be left out completely. He, too, wanted the blood-tear stone, but now he could only kneel and grip his fists tightly whilst maintaining an expression of happiness, pretending that he was happy for Luo Ba's sake. For some unknown reason, he had a word on the tip of his tongue that he neglected to speak out loud. Shui Yanyu had once said before that the person who had opened the sky would be rewarded by the heavens and earth, and possess an additional 3 stars of strength. The requirement for opening the sky was 20 stars of battle prowess, and added with another 3 stars of strength, he would at least have 23 stars of battle prowess, right? Even if Luo Ba refined this blood-tear stone, he might still not be a match for Ling Han. But they actually wanted to duel to the death. The corners of Luo Lai's lips curved up in a cold smirk. For him, it was a good thing no matter which of the two died, wasn't it? Then what need was there for him to speak up unnecessarily? He, too, was a man with ambition, and was definitely unwilling to forever remain in the second place. Refine the blood-tear stone, then immediately challenge that lowlife. This time, you must definitely not disappoint me. Luo Hongdao said, his expression solemn. I will definitely not disappoint your expectations, Lord Patriarch. Luo Ba declared excitedly. After refining this blood-tear stone, he would definitely become the greatest elite in the shattering void tier, and whatever Ling Han, Ma Xing, and Cheng Haofei came, he would be able to suppress them all single-handedly. Then he would take advantage of his rising fame and propose marriage at the Ji clan. Ji Yinner, that be ***H, was actually on such close terms with Ling Han. He was filled with resentment. When he got a hold of this woman in the future, he would definitely give her a well-deserved punishment. Gu Lingyu was definitely an alchemy fanatic. The moment she began talking about alchemy, she forgot everything else. Even when she had gotten weary from talking, she would uncaringly sprawl out on the bed and directly fall asleep, only leaving behind a request to continue the discussion after she woke up. This caused Ling Han not to know whether to laugh or cry. You really trust others too much, don't you? Although she was like a maniac when she was talking about alchemy without any hint of womanly charm, just look at her exquisite beauty and her alluring figure. Besides, she was simply lying on the bed without keeping her guard up. Did she really think that everyone was a gentleman? Even for a gentleman, there were times when they couldn't control themselves. Ling Han shook his head and allowed her to have his bedroom, whereas he himself entered into the Black Tower. There were still 2 days of his peaceful life left. On the second day, Gu Lingyu discussed alchemy with Ling Han again until he really could not bear her pestering and directly chased her out of his courtyard. Only then could his ears have a moment of blissful silence. Yet he had just chased Gu Lingyu out when Li Weiwei and Ji Yun'er arrived together. "Blockhead, my father wants to see you." Li Weiwei had come to pass on a message. The left minister wanted to see him. Ling Han was slightly surprised. Although he was proud of himself, he also understood that he would only be considered a nobody in the eyes of the left minister with his current abilities. He would not even be qualified to get a second look from the latter. Yet not even a full month had passed, and he wanted to see him again. If someone heard this, they would even think that he was being highly favored. Li Weiwei had only come to inform him. With her personality of a spoilt young miss, she would naturally not be going back with Ling Han. After she had said what she came to say, she left. Ling Han dared not slight the summons and immediately rushed towards the left minister's residence. His arrival was announced, and it was still Xiang Qingyun that had appeared and brought him to a small garden. The left minister was trimming a flower pot, his attention focused on it completely. Xiang Qingyun dared not make a sound to interrupt him, and stood somberly on one side waiting. Ling Han watched, but suddenly an expression of astonishment appeared on his face. Under the hands of Minister Li, this flower pot was actually exuding some kind of divine rhythm. Every branch seemed to be the movement a master of martial arts made as he extended his limbs, showing off an amazing technique. He could not help but compare it with the 6 techniques returned to one he was presently cultivating. All of a sudden, he came upon a great realization. Immediately, he sat down cross-legged, and the rhythm of great Tao spread out from inside his body. Being startled like that, the left minister abruptly let out a sound of surprise and stopped his movements. Chapter 920, Beating. Chapter 920, Beating. "How dare you?" Xiang Qingyun reprimanded immediately. Disturbing the left minister would cause all of them to be severely punished. Yet Ling Han turned a deaf ear to his rebuke. His complete focus was on the 6 techniques returned to one. Even if the other man's voice was as loud as thunder or shook the earth with its reverberation, he would not know, either, what more when Xiang Qingyun was only verbally reprimanding him like now. The left minister only spread out his hand and stopped Xiang Qingyun, though. An expression of surprise appeared on his face. This was a state of enlightenment. For cultivators, enlightenment could even be considered their utmost important fated opportunity. What was enlightenment? A dilemma that you could not understand no matter how hard you thought about it during normal times would suddenly be resolved and understood. Or, in other words, you would gain some idea of the outline or a hint when it was possible that you might understand completely. The understanding belonged to the individual. There were indeed alchemical pills or divine fruits that could aid one in understanding something, but they would only provide aid. It was not a guarantee of success. The moment you went into enlightenment, there could be an improvement in your cultivation that had stagnated for 100,000 years. For example, in the case of the left minister, he currently was at the peak of the minor levels of the heavenly body tier. But without a special fated opportunity, it was possible that he would not be able to advance into the middle levels in this lifetime. What he lacked was merely a sliver of enlightenment. Seeing Ling Han sink into a state of enlightenment, even the left minister could not help but feel a hint of jealousy. If he could also experience enlightenment, perhaps he would be in the middle levels of the heavenly body tier 10 years or 100 years later. Even if it looked like just a gap of a minor cultivation level, breaching the step was no less than crossing the distance from the ground to the clouds, and one's battle prowess would increase by at least tenfold. He could not help but smile in spite of himself. He actually became jealous of a little cultivator in the shattering void tier. However, it was actually nothing good to enter enlightenment too early. That was because the gods would definitely not favor one person too heavily and always allow them to enter into enlightenment. Usually, even a genius would only encounter 1 or 2 chances of entering into enlightenment in his lifetime, and one with nature-defying good luck would have this kind of opportunity only 4 to 5 times at most. Hence, the higher the cultivation level when one experienced the time of enlightenment, the more valuable this chance naturally would be. Xiang Qingyun could not help but look shocked and jealous. The Lord left minister actually waited on the sidelines for Ling Han to awaken? What kind of treatment was that? In the whole world, only one person would be qualified to have the Lord left minister wait. The Empress of the chaotic star's majestic empire. Now, a mere shattering void tier cultivator would actually have that kind of special treatment. So how could Xiang Qingyun not feel shocked and jealous? This moment of enlightenment lasted for about 2 hours. Ling Han's eyes suddenly snapped open, and he looked like he wished to continue. He had had great enough improvement on 6 techniques returned to 1, but he had awoken slightly too early from enlightenment and had not reached the level of perfection. Once he came back to his senses, he realized that he had sat down cross-legged in enlightenment at a really inopportune time. He hurriedly stood and saw that the left minister was presently looking smilingly at him, whereas Xiang Qingyun was wooden and expressionless, exuding an air of coldness that would make others keep a respectful distance. I suddenly had a flash of comprehension and completely forgot everything else. I ask for Lord Left Minister's forgiveness for my disrespect, Ling Han said politely. It's all right. The Left Minister was still very magnanimous. How could one who could ascend to as high a position as he and cultivate to this kind of high cultivation level be anyone ordinary? He cast a look at Xiang Qingyun and said, "Qingyun, leave us first." Xiang Qingyun was initially stunned. Then he practically could not believe his ears. Lord Left Minister actually had something that he was going to keep hidden from him. Moreover, he wanted to speak privately with Ling Han. Xiang Qingyun was already jealous of Ling Han, but now his jealousy naturally reached its peak. But no matter how arrogant he acted due to the left minister's favor, he did not dare disobey the left minister's words. He merely said a word of assent, then turned and left. But the instant his eyes swept over Ling Han, an incredibly cold chill appeared in his gaze. Ling Han could not help but feel baffled. He had offended him just like that. After Xiang Qingyun had left, the left minister picked up the shears once more and began trimming the flower pot. He did not speak, so Ling Han would naturally not take the initiative to ask. He stood on one side, hands at his sides. After a good while, the left minister finally put down the shears and asked casually, "Wei Wei has been helping you do business recently." These words could either be taken seriously or lightly. If they were to be taken lightly, the issue would be settled with a smile. But if they were to be taken seriously, you actually had the daughter of the left minister do errands for you. Who did you think you were? Ling Han paused for a moment, then answered, Indeed, I have been doing some business with the fourth young miss and Miss G. The two young misses are only interested because of its novelty and think that it's fun. The left minister laughed and said, Looking at the energy that girl is brimming with, it does not seem just like playing around. Instead, she seems to be very enthusiastic. No matter what the fourth young miss does, she has always been serious. Ling Han offered a word of compliment. The left minister could not help but laugh loudly. He certainly knew that these words of Ling Han were not to be believed, but the daughter he doted on the most was this youngest daughter of his. So hearing these words naturally made him greatly pleased. He nodded and said, It's rare that this girl would focus on doing something. I feel very gratified. Ling Han released a breath of relief internally. This matter was now over and done with. The left minister would not look into his fault for making use of Li Weiwei. He was obviously letting Li Weiwei become rich with him. So why did the situation now seem like it was Li Weiwei that was doing him a favor? From this, it could see how skilled Ling Han was in handling matters. If it was anyone else, he would definitely be in fear and trepidation, and prostrate himself in front of Li Weiwei in utter gratitude. The left minister once again picked up the shears. As he trimmed, he said carelessly, Weiwei has just about reached the age suitable for marriage. However, I am very worried and fear that she would be fooled due to her young age. Ling Han could not help his heart throbbing loudly, although the left minister had not clearly pointed fingers. He was obviously talking about him. It looked like the fact that he had been too close with Li Weiwei these days caused the left minister to feel displeased. No matter how monstrous the talent that Ling Han showed was, his current cultivation level was really too low. So how could he be a suitable match for the princess of the left minister's residence? Even if there was just a sliver of a chance, the left minister wanted to nip it in the bud. One that can be a suitable match for fourth young miss would have to be one of the noble young masters of the 7 generals, at the very least, Ling Han said. This could be considered his expressing his stand on this matter. The left minister was very pleased. This person from a small world was very clever. He merely needed a little hint and would understand everything. He paused for a while, then said, Every 10 years, the 3 great majestic empires would carry out a competition. There are 2 rounds for the Shattering Void tier and Mountain River tier, respectively. This year, the competition for the Shattering Void tier would be conducted. Every empire would send out 10 people, who would take turns to defend their position. The first one to have all 10 defeated would be placed last, whereas the one that can last until the end would be ranked first. He looked at Ling Han and said, You will battle on behalf of the left minister's residence. It was obvious he was being asked to work here. So why did the left minister still look like it was Ling Han who had been done a favor? However, he presently had also been labeled with the sign of the left minister's residence. Then, if the left minister wanted him to do something, how could it be that it was necessary to still ask his opinion? He was a mere Shattering Void tier cultivator. Yes. Ling Han nodded. However, this matter involves the pride of a whole empire. Even if I nominate you, you may not get through. The left minister then said, Hence, you have to defeat all other competitors to obtain the honor of representing the empire in battle. Yes, Ling Han said, but he thought, if I could help the Chaotic Star's majestic empire get first place, would I get some kind of reward? Since the left minister had mentioned that this matter concerned the pride of a whole empire, then the rewards given for attaining the first place shouldn't be too unpresentable, right? With such thoughts, Ling Han found his motivation. You may leave. The left minister waved him away. Chapter 921, Private Pledge of Marriage. Chapter 921, Private Pledge of Marriage. Ling Han left the garden and saw Xiang Qingyun was presently waiting at the doors. When he saw Ling Han, an uncontrollable coldness filled his eyes. but before he even opened his mouth to speak, he abruptly tensed up and appeared to be seriously listening to something. Yes, he quickly said into empty air, turned, and entered the garden. Obviously, he had gotten a summons from the left minister. Ling Han could not help but shake his head. Actually, Xiang Qingyin could be considered a genius himself. He had done his investigation, and Xiang Qingyun's results were outstanding whilst in the academy. He had merely taken over 700 years to reach the higher levels of the mountain river tier. Yet he chose to leave the academy and follow the lead of the left minister. With the backing of a huge tree like the left minister, it was true that even elites of the sun-moon tier presently dared not put on airs in front of Xiang Qingyun, and he truly appeared very grand. But in front of the left minister he was like a dog. If he was told to head forwards, he would not dare step back. What meaning was left in a life like that? Ling Han would definitely not be able to do so. Cultivators, in the end, should place greatest importance on their own cultivation. Taking advantage of opportunities to curry favor is ultimately not the true path, Ling Han thought. However, he had no thoughts of convincing Xiang Qingyin. This path was one that he had chosen on his own, so what need was there for others to interfere? He returned to the academy and focused on cultivating his 6 techniques returned to 1. After the enlightenment he had experienced at the left minister's residence, he had advanced a great deal further on this path. He was certain he would be able to improve his strength to the maximum limit of 20 stars in a half-year's time. Another day passed, and a shocking piece of news exploded in the academy. Ling Han and Xue Yinyu had privately pledged love for each other and were already a married couple. When the news spread out, it could be claimed that the whole academy was boiling over. Who was Ling Han? The majority was still not sure, and only a very few knew that he was the student who had got the first place in this batch of new students from the Northern Institution's enrollment. He had passed through 8 levels, and in the future, there was a chance he could become a 4-star genius. However, Xue Yanyu was definitely a well-known figure. Firstly, she had already been one of the twin pearls of the imperial capital before she was 20. However, it was only after entering into the academy that she was replaced. After all, the immortal realm was a place where beautiful women were hardly lacking. But if all the beautiful women of the last 10,000 years were to be ranked, Xue Yanyu would definitely be capable of ranking among the top 3. In fact, it would be no surprise for her to be even ranked in the first place. She was as beautiful as a fairy and as beautiful as peach flowers. She was a beauty who would even bewitch ascetic cultivators with her charms. Otherwise, how could it be that Zhao Luan would speak up and declare that he had set his mind on her becoming the future madam of the Zhao clan? Indeed, the reason that Xue Yinyu was even more well-known was Zhao Lin, the son of the great General Zhao, a genius that could go into the history of the academy. Everyone knew that Xue Yinyu was his forbidden domain, but now someone actually dared to rob him of his cherished person. Who was this? His courage was really too overwhelming. Then, all of Ling Han's information was dug out. The first place holder of this batch of newly enrolled students of the Northern Institution, passing through 8 levels, being skilled in alchemy, originating from a small world, an emperor that had opened the skies. The last bit of information was extremely shocking. That was because, in the eyes of the majority, opening the skies was something that only existed in legends. Even in the immortal realm, there were few whose power could reach 20 stars of shattering void tier, and it was already quite impressive to reach 15 stars in a small world. Even with the boost from Power of the Nation, it was impossible that they would be able to reach the level of 20 stars. How could they open the skies then? Impressive, he could reach battle prowess of 20 stars of shattering void tier, even though he had come from a small world. No wonder he could pass through 8 levels and be ranked among the top geniuses. But in front of the Zhao clan, all that was meaningless. Ling Han merely relied on the left minister. Unless he was the actual son of the left minister, what qualified him to compete with the son of the great general Zhao over a woman? Many were waiting to see how Ling Han would deal with this matter. This Zhao Luan had already spoken up in public that when he had graduated from the academy, he would marry Shui Yanyu and had obtained the agreement of the Shui clan. Blockhead, blockhead. Li Weiwei, meanwhile, had raced over in excitement. Have you really got married with big sister Shui? Ling Han cast an eye on her. Wasn't all this because of her? He said calmly, and what about it? I really couldn't tell. You are not amazingly handsome, nor do you know how to delight women. So what do you have that big sister Shui would fall in love with you? Li Weiwei supported her chin, appearing very confused. Even my maid servant would not fall in love with you. Strange. Could it be that big sister Shui has been bewitched? Ling Han could not help but be dumbstruck. This fourth young miss really spoke such hurtful words. Even if you were the daughter of the left minister, and not many would become hostile after hearing you say such words, with such low emotional intelligence, how many would really be sincere towards you? However, you're going to be in great trouble. Not only is that guy, Zhao Luan, a martial arts genius himself, he also has 3 followers. Each one of them is a genius among geniuses, and he needs only issue a simple command, and his lackey would do this to you. She made a motion of a blade passing over the neck, and on the second day, your dead body would be abandoned in the streets. Ling Han sighed and said, Couldn't you say some good words? Beg me. Li Weiwei planted her hands on her hips. Though Zhao Luan is very strong, I am not afraid of him. Beg me enough to make me happy, and I could step out to protect you. Forget about it. I have not much interest in becoming a slave to another. Ling Han rejected decisively. Li Weiwei was instantly furious. Did this damn blockhead know that even she had to go through a mental struggle before opposing Zhao Luan? The power of his Zhao clan was in no way inferior to the left minister's residences. Furthermore, when one had reached such heights as they, the attitude of the youths never represented merely the youngsters. What if news spread that the left minister and the great general Zhao were on poor terms? Wouldn't that create a chance for the left minister to be criticized? This damn blockhead actually refused so quickly and was unworthy of her kindness. This was practically enough to kill her with fury. Humph! Who cares if you live or die? Now that her temper had risen, she suddenly raced off. Ling Han's expression was calm. When he agreed to Shui Yenyu's request, he had already foreseen the consequences. But he believed that even Zhao Luan would not dare to publicly commit a crime in the academy. There were still some rules which he had to adhere to. The Zhao clan, after all, was merely the clan of a general of the chaotic star's majestic empire, and not the emperor's family. Counter-soldiers with arms and water with an earth were one. What was there to be afraid of? Oh, Yanyu has really admitted it herself. Under a waterfall, a young man was presently standing with his hands crossed behind his back. Behind him, there were 3 images of mountains and rivers. Shockingly, he was a being in the higher levels of the mountain-river tier. Upon closer examination, his mountains and rivers were unlike those of the others, whose mountains were green and waters were clear. They were flickering with a red light and exuded a terrifying air instead. Yes, young master. A young man was half kneeling behind him. H.I.'s expression was both reverent and passionate, as if this man in front of him was a god. This young man that was presently standing with his hands crossed behind his back was precisely Zhao Lin, and the young man that was half kneeling was one of his followers. His name was Zuoshao. He was presently informing Zhao Luan about the matter of Ling Han and Shui Yanyu marrying each other. He was very enraged. Shui Yanyu was a woman their young master had his eye on, and that was her good luck that she had accumulated over several lifetimes. Yet she was not only cool towards their young master, but she actually even cuckolded him. She practically deserved to die 100 times over. Zhao Lun laughed loudly, shook his head, and said, "What trouble? Looks like I have given her too much freedom. Oh, right, what is that man's name? Ling Han. Zhuo Xiao answered quickly. Have someone send this object to him. If he is willing to accept obediently, then spare his life. Zhao Luan casually tossed out an object from his spatial spirit tool. Zhuo Xiao's eyes swept over the item. He could not help but smirk coldly and answered, I will do as you bid, young master. Chapter 922, Zhao Luan's Gift. Chapter 922, Zhao Luan's Gift. Ling Han, come out. Ling Han was in the midst of cultivation when he heard a cold shout ring out. He walked into the courtyard and opened the doors to take a look. There were two young men presently standing outside, and they were both in the Shattering Void tier, but he recognized neither of them. They were not from this batch of new students that had enrolled into the Northern Institution, but could be from the last batch or the batch before that. What can I do for you? Ling Han was calm and collected, though he already had a rough guess. That is senior brother Wang Wan. And their senior brother Zhang Qing too. They are both subordinates of senior brother Zhao Li. Pei, how could they be qualified? They are the subordinates of the three great followers of senior brother disciple Zhaolin. Their gods know how far away from senior brother Zhaolin. Still, the fact that they would appear now means they must definitely be here on behalf of senior brother Zhao. Of course, Ling Han actually dared to try and snatch senior brother Zhao's woman. It would be strange if there was no reaction from senior brother Zhao. One after another, courtyard doors opened, revealing multiple faces. A great many were wearing cold smirks, appearing to be delighting in Ling Han's miseries. This was very natural. Not only was Ling Han the first place of this round of new students, he even managed to seduce senior's sister, Shui Yanyu. She was an unprecedented beauty, so who would not be jealous? Ling Han heard all this and made an "oh" internally. He knew that Zhao Luan would definitely make a move, but the latter obviously had not taken him seriously and had only sent two Shattering Void tier cultivators here. Was he planning on using violence? Wang Wan, meanwhile, smirked coldly. This guy that came from a small world was really ignorant. Did he think that just because he opened the sky he had the right to do as he liked in the immortal realm? They would teach him the rules today. We have come under command of senior brother Zhao Luan to deliver a gift to you, he said. When those around them heard this, they were all puzzled. Was there something wrong with Zhao Luan? Ling Han had snatched your woman, and you still wanted to give him a gift. Ling Han was internally calm and asked, "Oh, what kind of gift?" Wang Wan and Zhang Qing shared a look. Wang Wan took out a brocade box from his spatial spirit tool. It was wrapped very beautifully, but it was not very big. He held the box in his hands and said, "Quickly kneel down to receive your gift." "Kneel down to receive it?" Ling Han laughed raucously. "Has something gone wrong with your head? It's a great gift from senior brother Zhao, yet you dare not kneel to receive and offer your thanks." Zhang Qing countered sinisterly. Ling Han waved his hand dismissively and said, "If that's the case, then you can just take this gift back with you." "I cannot accept." Wang Wan humphed and said, "It's a gift that senior brother Zhao has given out. How could it be taken back? If you do not want to kneel and receive the gift, fine. Just take it." He nodded at Zhang Qing. Zhang Qing got the signal and began to unwrap the brocade box. Everyone was curious. What kind of gift did Zhao Luan give Ling Han? None of them thought Zhao Luan was a person easy to deal with. On the contrary, this genius was an arrogant bully and was well known for his forcefulness. The silk cloth outside the brocade box was unwrapped, and Zhang Qing opened the box in front of everyone's eyes, revealing the contents of the box. Abruptly, complete silence descended. The item inside this brocade box was actually a dog's collar. The meaning could not be clearer. Zhao Luan was going to treat Ling Han like a dog, taking him to his side and ordering him about. Such contempt. Such humiliation. In my eyes, you are a mere dog. Ling Han, senior brother Zhao, said that if you accept this gift, your life will be spared. Wang Wan said with a smile, his face filled with arrogance. Shua. Everyone's eyes turned to stare fixedly at Ling Han. Accepting this gift, he would be Zhao Luan's servant and lackey, but if he did not accept, his only fate was death. Who would dare treat Zhao Luan's words as a mere joke? Unless Ling Han hid for the rest of his life in the academy, wouldn't it be too easy for the son of the great General Zhao to kill a shattering, void-tier cultivator? What was he going to do? Whether he accepted this gift or otherwise, Ling Han was finished. There was nothing else that could be done. From the moment that Ling Han and Shui Yanyu were entangled together, his fate was already destined. A flash of fury flickered in Ling Han's eyes, yet his expression was frighteningly calm. He looked at that dog collar and strode out. Was he planning to accept? True, compared with his life, what would dignity count as? Furthermore, becoming Zhao Luan's dog, a great many were more than willing to do so, though Zhao Luan did not consider them worthy in the least. Wang Wan's and Zhang Qing's lips curled up, and their faces were painted all over with as expected. Who would not be afraid of death? Ling Han stretched out a hand and grabbed the collar. Then, in a sudden burst of force, Pennsylvania, this collar was instantly snapped in two in his hands. He carelessly tossed it onto the ground and said calmly, "Pass the message to Zhao Lun. I appreciate his kindness, but I do not have the fortune to enjoy." Pa! The dog collar was thrown onto the ground, and a crisp sound of impact rang out. Once again, complete silence fell. Ling Han was planning to stand against Zhao Luan. Where had he gotten such courage and confidence from? His opponent was Zhao Luan, the only son of the great General Zhao Luan, and an elite in the higher levels of the mountain river tier. He was also rumored to be a 3-star genius. What qualified you to oppose him? How dare you? You actually dare to break senior brother Zhao's gift. Do you know what great crime you have committed? Wang Wan shouted in harsh rebuke. Ling Han's eyes were cold as he said, "After being brought something like this to humiliate me, should I not smash it? The two of you get out here immediately. Don't annoy me with the sight of your faces. You are already a dead man, and you still dare to be arrogant." Wang Wan said icily, "Pa." Ling Han stretched out a hand and picked him up in a single move. With his current abilities, those with battle prowess below 20 stars were naturally no match for him. He squeezed Wang Wan's neck and retorted coldly, "Since I am already a dead man, I would not mind dragging a few people to be buried next to me." Wang Wan instantly felt all his hair stand on ends. He did not have the slightest bit of resolve to give up his life for Zhao Luan's sake. He had no enmity with Ling Han, and if he died, then wouldn't that be a great loss? "No, no, no, don't kill me," he uttered in a trembling voice. "Coward!" With a careless toss, Ling Han threw Wang Wan out. The academy allowed spars, but definitely did not allow killing nor crippling. Ling Han had never thought he was a dead man, so he was naturally not going to throw himself in just because of a nobody. "Get lost," he shouted. Wang Wan and Zhang Qing quickly left with their tails between their legs. They were indeed not weak, but how could there be anyone that was Ling Han's match in the shattering void tier? "You've forgotten something." Ling Han raised his foot, and Xiao kicked the broken dog collar over. Wang Wan caught the collar, but did not dare delay his departure, his dejected figure soon disappearing from sight. Everyone that witnessed this only felt that though Ling Han managed to be forceful this time, what about afterwards? While the academy forbade higher-level students to make a move against lower-level students, Ling Han could not possibly stay in the shattering void tier forever. The moment he advanced into the lower levels of the mountain river tier, cultivators at the peak of the lower levels would be able to forcefully challenge him. It was true that you were a 4-star genius, But the Academy similarly did not lack 3-star and 2-star geniuses, and they could still torture you till you were in so much pain that you wished you were dead. Moreover, could you stay forever in the Academy? Everyone shook their heads. Obviously, Ling Han's days were numbered. Luo clan residence. Luo Hongdao summoned Luo Ba and asked, "Have you completed refining the blood tear stone?" "Yes, Lord Patriarch." Luo Ba was filled with confidence. His current battle prowess was as high as 21 stars, which puffed him up with pride. That lowlife has become deadly enemies with Zhao Luan, and it is destined that he won't live long. Luo Hongdao said, "You'll immediately go and challenge that lowlife. Otherwise, if he died in Zhao Luan's hands, there would be no chance for you to wash off your shame. Additionally, if you kill that lowlife for Zhao Luan, we may be able to get a connection with a great tree like the great General Zhao." "Yes, Lord Patriarch." Luo Ba smirked coldly. He could no longer wait to kill Ling Han. Chapter 923. An Unexpected Prophet. Chapter 923. An Unexpected Prophet. On the next day after Zhao Luan delivered his gift, Luo Ba issued a battle notice, intending to challenge Ling Han to a battle to the death. It was not an ordinary spar, but rather a fight where only one would come out alive. In the Scarlet Heaven Academy, if both parties were on the same cultivation level, for example, both were in the lower levels of the Mountain River tier or in the Shattering Void tier, they were free to spar with one another. As long as one side wanted to battle, there was no need for the other person to agree at all. But this kind of spar could not end in permanent injury or death. Otherwise, the Academy would pursue the offender as responsible. Hence, if you wanted a battle to death, there was a need to publicly make an appointment for the battle and obtain the agreement of the other party before the fight could begin. In this way, no matter what the conclusion was, neither side would have to bear any consequences. However, in so many years, there were pitifully few such duels that actually took place. A battle to the death. Everyone in the Academy was astonished. Although not many people favored a cultivator that came from a small world, Ling Han was a different story. He was an emperor that had come by opening the sky, and this meant that his abilities had reached the extent of 20 stars. Moreover, Luo Ba should be even clearer about the gap in power between himself and Ling Han. Previously, he had been on the receiving end of 2 slaps from Ling Han, and was absolutely powerless to do anything about it, yet now he actually challenged Ling Han to a death battle. Had he been bewitched or something? Could it be that Luo Ba had a major improvement in his abilities, and thought himself capable of defeating Ling Han? Now Luo Ba had made his move, and it was up to Ling Han whether to accept or otherwise. Ling Han's response was very decisive. As long as he paid, he would fight. The fee for his appearance was 10 true origin stones. If he won, there would be an additional payment of 100 true origin stones. The battle would only commence after an agreement was signed. True enough, this guy had not changed in the slightest. When they heard how Ling Han responded, everyone felt amused. He had obviously made an enemy of a powerful person like Zhao Luan, yet was still unaffected. What was this guy's brain made of? He was really too thick, wasn't he? This time, Luo Ba also replied very quickly and agreed to Ling Han's conditions. Both sides agreed to battle 3 days later. Ling Han was sure that Luo Ba definitely had a great improvement in his abilities, and that was why he wanted to battle him to the death. Otherwise, it was utterly impossible that he would be giving up true origin stones and his life in the process. How could a good person like that exist in this world? But he was unafraid. Aside from himself, no one knew what extent his present battle prowess had reached. Strength of 17 stars and battle prowess was 25 stars. In the Shattering Void tier, the difference of a single star meant a world of difference, and from 20 stars onwards, it became incredibly difficult to improve battle prowess, which also meant that the gap in battle prowess was also incomparably huge with every increase of a single star. Could Luo Ba manage to not only surge up to 20 stars of battle prowess in a short few days, but also surpass 5 stars? Who would believe that? Nothing changed in Ling Han's daily life. He was filled with curiosity about that white-haired elder of the library previously, so he also asked around. But no one could clearly describe the origins of that old man Su. They only knew that he had already been in the library since a very long time ago. Every time they saw him, he looked like he was going to die soon, but he did not, which was incredibly bizarre. He came to the library and saw that old man Su was just like he was last time, snoozing at the same place. He greeted, "Greetings, Senior." Old man Su raised his head and cast an eye on him. Suddenly, his gaze became heated and bright, but quickly dimmed. He gave a cough and asked, "Young man, have you finished cultivating the 6 techniques Return to One?" Ling Han was shocked and blurted out, "How does Senior know about that?" "Ho ho, if that was not the case, how could your strength increase so much in a short 1 month's time?" Old man Su countered with a question of his own. The old man could roughly detect his strength. Ling Han nodded and answered, "Senior indeed has good eyes, which impresses this junior." Old man Su laughed and said, "However, Junior, your situation is not too encouraging." Ling Han smiled as well and answered, "It's fine. I should still be able to hold on." Old man Su stared at Ling Han. After a good while, he finally said, "This old man has a lackluster technique. Are you interested in learning it?" This old man was definitely an ultimate elite. He said that it was lackluster, but those were definitely humble words. Ling Han replied quickly, "Please offer your guidance, Senior." Old man Su closed his eyes, seeming to be napping. Just when Ling Han thought that he was really going to fall asleep, he suddenly opened his mouth and said, "This secret technique is called 7-Kill Subduing Soul Technique. It lets you use your spiritual strength to attack your opponent, which can temporarily stun them. The stronger your spirit is, the tougher and more durable it is, and thus the greater the effect you would be able to induce in your opponent." Immediately, Ling Han was incredibly and pleasantly surprised. His spirit was very strong, but he did not have any technique that could let the strength of his spirit cause actual effect. Under the effects of the reincarnation tea, his spirit was far stronger than that of any other cultivator in the 9th layer of the Shattering Void tier. He had cultivated the 2nd layer of the Indestructible Heaven Scroll as well, so his spirit was getting tougher and more durable by the day. If he learnt the 7-Kill Subduing Soul Technique, then in a situation when his opponent was unable to defend in time, even Mountain River tier cultivators could possibly be struck and become stunned due to its effects. But what was the greatest effect of that? Being stunned for an instant. No matter how short that time was, the victim would definitely lose consciousness, and he could use that opening to draw the person into the Black Tower. Once in the Black Tower, he was the absolute dictator. So how could Ling Han not be pleasantly surprised? "However, Senior, I have no intention of taking a master," Ling Han said. Old man Su smiled and said, "It is only an unimportant technique. Just take it that this old man is fond of you and thus taught you the technique." "Thank you, Senior," Ling Han declared solemnly. After a pause, he continued, "In future, if there is any need for this junior, I will definitely not refuse." Old man Su laughed, nodded, and said, "Perhaps there would really be a day when you can help this old man." Ling Han knew that there was no hatred that existed for no reason, nor was there love that existed for no reason. Ling Han did not quite believe that the old man wanted to teach him this 7-Kill Subduing Soul Technique, just because he cherished his talent. After all, they had only met twice. But this secret technique sounded like it suited him very much, so he could not force himself to speak words of refusal. "Come over here." Old man Su nodded at Ling Han. Ling Han walked over. Meanwhile, old man Su stretched out a finger. There was a flickering white light at his fingertip, which he then pressed down in the direction of Ling Han's forehead. This was a vital point. If Old Man Su held killing intent, then with a light press, Ling Han would not even have the chance to duck into the Black Tower, as his spirit would be directly shattered. Ling Han chose to trust him, and thus he stood as firm as a mountain. Old Man Su's finger pressed down. Wang, innumerable characters instantly surged into Ling Han's mind. Each character was endlessly complex and could not be expressed or explained with words. It was like they were part of the Tao of heaven and earth, a kind of regulation, and could only be understood but not described. Ling Han sat on the ground and could not help probing and investigating. Every slight improvement caused him uncontrollable joy. But just as he was concentrating, he felt a clap on his shoulder, which broke his concentration. He snapped open his eyes and saw Old Man Su, who smiled at him and said, "You have already meditated for 3 days. You should have an appointment today, right?" Ling Han was stunned. 3 days had passed just like that? Why did he feel as if only a mere instant had passed? He nodded and said, "Thank you, Senior. I shall pay you a visit another day. Go on." Old Man Su waved him off. Chapter 924. Luo Ba became stronger. Chapter 924. Luo Ba became stronger. As Ling Han walked towards Thousand Spear Mountain, he was still reflecting on the 7-kill subduing soul technique. With every moment that passed, he felt as if his understanding had deepened, and he could not help but be overjoyed, wanting nothing more than to immediately turn around and go back so that he could study the secret technique properly. 7 kills and subduing soul were actually 2 sections of the secret technique. Minor accomplishment was to subdue the soul, wherein he could use divine sense to attack his opponent and bring the latter a momentary lapse in his senses. This, in the midst of battle, was practically fatal. For example, in a situation when both sides were equal in power, or even in the case when his abilities were slightly inferior, an attack from his 7-kill subduing soul technique, causing the opponent a momentary blankness, followed by another strike with the sword, could decide the victory then and there. However, in the case where the power gap was too big, perhaps he would not even manage to use his sword, and his opponent would have already come back to his senses. There was nothing that could be done. This was only a martial arts technique, and not a nature-defying mystical power that could let one completely ignore the difference of cultivation levels. However, after major accomplishment, he would be able to directly kill and destroy the spirit. The 7 kills were divided into 7 levels in total, and each level was more powerful than the last. Still, it also had very high demands on the strength of his own spirit. If one could not temper his own spirit to become incomparably firm and solid, then how could it become a blade to kill others? After cultivating the heart of martial arts, one would possess the ability to directly injure his opponent's spirit. However, this was most effective against evil objects, such as the corpse soldiers against normal living beings. The heart of martial arts did not have very outstanding effects when causing injury, and was more about control over one's own abilities. This secret technique might have evolved from the heart of martial arts, and had further developed the uses of the spirit. As Ling Han walked, he continued to ponder. Soon, he arrived at the foot of the 1,000 Spear Mountain. This was one of the 3 mountains in the academy. Halfway up the mountain, there was a large platform. It was the venue where spars would take place. The floor tiles had all been reinforced, and even cultivators who had perfected the mountain river tier would find it very difficult to damage. If not, there would have been a need to repair it after every single battle. Wouldn't that be too troublesome? Ling Han is here. Seeing Ling Han walk over from the foot of the mountain, everyone began to call out in excitement. A duel to death was a very rare occurrence in the history of the academy, and the students here were all very young, possibly because they had always buried themselves in cultivation. They might not even have had a single experience of actual battle. Thus, they were indescribably looking forward to bloodshed and death. The path of martial arts had always been accompanied by fresh blood and slaughter. One could not possibly stay in a protected zone forever. The spectators were all looking at Ling Han. This guy was definitely a legendary figure. Although he had only enrolled in the academy 1 month ago, just how much news was there about him? An emperor that had opened the skies. He slapped Luo Ba and extorted the Luo clan. He snatched the goddess of the academy, Shui Yenyu, attracting the jealousy and hatred of the masses, and had even drawn out Zhao Luan, who issued a notice of death to him. What new student could accomplish so many majestic feats? He's an emperor that had opened the skies, so his battle prowess must have definitely reached 20 stars. On a huge tree stood a young man in yellow robes, his arms crossed behind his back, and an expression of powerful pride on his face. Big Brother Yi, what is there for you to be afraid of? You are the greatest elite in the Shattering Void tier of our Eastern institution. You have already achieved battle prowess of 20 stars 10 years ago, right? By his side, there stood another young man. This young man was dressed in green from head to toe, and was even wearing a green cap on his head. 2 small goatees were left on both sides of his mouth, making him look a bit comical. The young man in yellow robes showed an aloof and proud expression as he said, "Junrin, you are always unwilling to focus on cultivation. If that had not been the case, your present battle prowess would have already reached 20 stars. How would you still be staying at 19 stars, unable to advance further?" You know me. I enjoy reveling among the flowers," the green-robed man said, grinning. The yellow-robed man was called Yi Qingyuan, and he was the greatest elite in Shattering Void tier of the Eastern institution, whereas the green-clothed man was called Mo Junrin, and was a good friend of Yi Qingyuan. The elders of their clans were also on good terms. As a result, they had been playmates since youth, and were practically inseparable. Big Brother Yi, you keep delaying your advance into the Mountain River tier. You must be thinking of cultivating Shattering Void tier to perfection within 100 years. Exactly how many stars has your battle prowess reached by now? 21 stars? Mo Junrin guessed. Yi Qingyuan laughed loudly and said, "If that Ling Han is very strong, you will have the chance to see me make a move." Big Brother Yi, you actually want to challenge that man who has come from a small world. Mo Junrin was extremely surprised. How many years have I not moved? I fear I will be forgotten. Yi Qingyuan's eyes looked behind Ling Han. Luo Ba was here. Unconsciously, his gaze turned serious as he said, "This Luo Ba is not so simple. Looks like his abilities have greatly improved, and he has broken through the maximum limit of 20 stars. What? Mo Junrin was astonished. In the eyes of the majority, battle prowess of 20 stars was the maximum limit of the Shattering Void tier. He could accept Yi Qingyuan breaking through 20 stars because he was very familiar with his friend, but now here was another with battle prowess above 20 stars, so he was naturally astonished without compare. He should have refined some kind of treasure. He himself should not have battle prowess of 20 stars. There seems to be some god tool that has given him an additional boost and pushed his battle prowess up to 20 stars, Yi Qingyuan guessed. His eyes were really sharp. Luo Ba's situation was indeed as he had said. The Blood Tier Stone did not increase Luo Ba's personal ability, but would give an additional boost whenever he delivered an attack. However, the final effect would still be the same. My hands are itching. Yi Qingyuan laughed loudly. He leaped out, and he had appeared in front of Luo Ba within a few jumps. Shooting out a punch, he shouted, "Luo Ba, come, let us exchange a few blows." In the academy, as long as cultivation levels were equal, spars could be initiated at any time as long as it did not lead to any permanent injury or death. Who would have imagined that Yi Qingyuan would actually make his move at this moment? Luo Ba could not help but grunt. He could not wait to defeat Ling Han and thrash him so much till he was only left with a single breath. He would be humiliated in the eyes of everyone, and only then would he choose to end his life. With a disturbance from Yi Qingyuan like this now, He was naturally not in a very good mood. "You're asking to be thrashed," he declared coldly, and delivered a palm strike towards Yi Qingyuan. "Who?" The movement of his palm produced a whistle in the air. The moment he shot out his palm, the image of a powerful creature actually appeared. It looked like a bird and was as red as flames. It had 6 legs and 4 wings, but had no eyes, nose, or mouth because a pair of wings was growing out of its head. This was undoubtedly very bizarre, but this monster bird did not make anyone feel the slightest bit like laughing, and only possessed endless divine might. "Imperial River!" someone declared in a shaking voice. This was the divine beast, Imperial River. In the immortal realm, those that could claim to be divine beasts were definitely not those that had advanced into the mountain river tier, but those that had reached the formidable height of the Genesis tier. With one attack, the figure of a divine beast actually appeared. What kind of concept was that? Yet Yi Qingyuan was not scared. Instead, he was overjoyed and laughed loudly as he proclaimed, "You have refined the blood tier stone? That's why your attacks would induce the appearance of an image of the owner of the divine blood. However, this is ultimately just an image. If you want to suppress me, it is still not enough." He gave a loud shout, and brilliant golden light enshrouded his whole body. His figure actually became taller all of a sudden by an additional 3 feet, frighteningly majestic. Waving both fists, he punched out in Luo Ba's direction. Chapter 929. You're going to be a grandfather. Chapter 929. You are going to be a grandfather. A 5th-tier clan couldn't be underestimated. Being included in the 9 tiers of clans in the imperial capital meant that they were influential, possessing an esteemed status in society that would make other people look up to them. The ancestor of the Shui clan was an elite whose cultivation had reached the middle levels of the Sun-Moon tier. He was said to have reached the late stage of the middle levels and was expected to go towards the peak. However, it ought to be impossible for him to reach the higher levels. After all, time and tide waited for no manha didn't have that long to live. The present patriarch of the Shui clan was a 6th-ranked official of the Majestic Empire and also the biological father of Shui Yinyu. His cultivation had also reached the minor levels of the Sun-Moon tier. In the future, it would be likely that he would take over the responsibility of guarding the Shui clan from their ancestor. 8 guards had lined up at the main doors, all of whom were at the level of the Shattering Void tier. Within the entire imperial capital, probably aside from the Empress, other forces wouldn't be qualified to have cultivators of the mountain river tier serve as guards, as it would be a huge waste of financial resources. Secondly, it would also be too conspicuous how would the Empress view such a person. With Shui Yenyu leading the way, they naturally entered the Shui clan's manor with ease. They walked towards the study where the patriarch of the Shui clan would be found. "You mustn't let the cat out of the bag," Shui Yenyu whispered to him before entering. Ling Han smiled slightly and said, "Rest assured, I will be by your side to help." Shui Yenyu stressed again. "That would really be a huge help for me," Ling Han replied with a smile. Shui Yenyu took a deep breath. Then she pushed open the door and walked in first. "Father," she called out softly. Inside the study, there was only a middle-aged man sitting upright and reading a book. Hearing her, he looked up and swept his gaze over both Shui Yenyu and Ling Han. He then nodded. "You may leave first," he said to Shui Yenyu. Shui Yenyu was stunned for a moment. She was about to open her mouth to speak when the man glared at her. At that moment, she could only take her leave obediently. Ling Han caught her eyes momentarily with an expression that meant, "You just said a while ago that you would stay by my side and support me. How could you abandon me in the blink of an eye?" Shui Yenyu glanced at him. He could still make cutting remarks at a time like this? Just what was his heart made of? It was really too tough. She walked out of the entrance and closed the door behind her. The patriarch of the Shui clan was called Ziji did not speak or even bother to look at Ling Han. Instead, he picked up his book and continued reading. At this moment, Ling Han was observing the other party. This middle-aged man was really too handsome for words. At the very least, Ling Han knew that he was no match for the man in terms of appearance. Moreover, for a full-grown man to be born with a pair of peach blossom eyes, it would really cause others, whether male or femelito, be attracted to him. It seemed that Shui Yenyu had taken more after her father, as she not only inherited her father's exceptional beauty, but also the temperament. However, when these characteristics appeared on a man, it would make him appear effeminate. Yet, if they were found in a woman, her exquisiteness and allure would be bone-deep. Shui Zaij had no intention to speak at all, but the aura of an elite of the Sun-Moon tier had been set in motion. In such a situation, even an elite of the Mountain River tier would be trembling all over, and not even have the strength to stand, let alone a cultivator of the Shattering Void tier. The suppression of every level in the immortal realm was really tremendous, especially at the stage of the major cultivation tiers. It was said that even the legendary 5-star geniuses could not cross such a domain. In the eyes of others, Luo Ba was powerful to the extent that he could not be opposed. However, in his eyes, so what if his battle prowess was 21 stars? A careless slap, and he would be smacked to death. So is there any need to take particular note of him? His thoughts having been interrupted, he was naturally not going to be in a good mood, and the expression on his face immediately revealed that. Others did not know that, and thought that Ling Han was afraid. They all shook their heads covertly, thinking that this battle was probably not going to happen. Ling Han stretched out a hand and asked, "What about the payment for my participation?" Pooh! Abruptly, a great many choked. "You are really greedy for money, aren't you? Didn't you see how awesome Luo Ba was just now?" Yet Luo Ba laughed loudly and carelessly tossed out 10 true origin stones, saying coldly, "This is for you to arrange your funeral." Sigh, after extorting 2,000 true origin stones from the Luo clan. This mere sum of 10 true origin stones seemed to have lost its attractiveness all of a sudden. Still, it was better than nothing. If he did not take it, it would be a waste anyways. No one would grumble about having too much money, anyway, no matter how much they already had. Ling Han put away the true origin stones and asked, "There's another 100. You think you can defeat me?" Luo Ba was instantly infuriated. Ling Han snickered and said, "Rules are rules. Where do you come up with all this nonsense? Are you going to fight or not? If not, I'm going home to sleep." "Yes." Luo Ba gritted his teeth and took out 100 true origin stones with another wave of his hand. This time, Ling Han did not put them away. After all, the battle was not won yet. However, it was only a matter of time. "Can we fight now?" Luo Ba asked sinisterly, the killing intent in his heart boiling. "Just take this chance to win the verbal battle now, but later you're finished." In the academy, there were also a few higher-ups that had come to observe the battle, though they stood quite far away. One of them was Luo Kaifenga Jr. of his own clan, was involved in a duel to death, so he naturally had to pay attention. There was also Zhang Deman. He was quite fond of Ling Han, and was of a mind to take him as his disciple. In addition, Wei Qianshu was also present. Since the last time he had been dragged along by Luo Kaifeng, he had also become interested in Ling Han. Duels to death were very uncommon nowadays, what more when both sides possessed extremely high battle prowess. There were many spectators, and the students in the Shattering Void tier division of the Northern Institution numbered the most. There were also some from the other 3 institutions, but altogether they were fewer than the students from the Northern Institution. "Let's fight then. Where do you come up with so much nonsense? Are you afraid of death?" Ling Han asked, smiling. Luo Ba was enraged half to death. It was obviously you that had been spouting too much nonsense, all right? However, the battle finally began now. Haha! He would slowly torture Ling Han, and make the others suffer in his agony for daring to actually slap him. Xiao, he pounced out and shot out a palm strike. The image of the divine beast, Imperial River, appeared once more, bringing along a great power of dominance with it. Ling Han placed his left arm behind his back and was standing in a very casual pose. He waited until Luo Ba had come close enough. Then he waved out a palm and pressed down on Luo Ba. Multiple divine patterns interwove together, forming an incredibly complex pattern. Earth overturning seal. Pum! With a palm strike, Luo Ba was undoubtedly sent flying. Then his body split apart in midair, separating into pieces and producing a shower of blood. Pa! His corpse landed on the ground, his expression one of disbelief. It seemed like he was wondering why he was smacked to death with a single slap when he obviously had battle prowess of 21 stars. This was illogical and unacceptable. All around was dead silence, and the only thing that could be heard was the whistling wind. Who would have thought that the previously awe-inspiring Luo Ba would actually be smacked to death with a single palm strike? Was this really a fuck elite who had battle prowess of 21 stars of shattering void tier and not a fly? No. Luo Ba was definitely not a fly. On the contrary, he was incredibly powerful and exchanged 3 blows with Yi Qingyuan with neither coming out on top. This was enough to prove that he was powerful. Everyone felt their scalps go numb. It was because Ling Han was even more powerful. What kind of battle prowess was this? 22 stars. Actually, the majority did not have much of an idea how much strength could be attained with every improvement of a single star of battle prowess from 20 stars onwards. That was because it only existed in theory and legends. So how could it be measured in detail? Yi Qingyuan felt a muscle twitch in his cheek, and his whole body was covered with cold sweat. Ling Han's power caused him to lose even the courage to issue a challenge. Chapter 926, False Charges. Chapter 926, False Charges. I knew it. In the distance, Li Weiwei waved her fist excitedly. She had guessed that Ling Han's battle prowess might have reached 23 stars of shattering void tier. Thus, with the advantage of an additional 2 stars, he could easily suppress his opponent. Ji Yinner was also shocked. She had thought that the battle prowess of 20 stars of shattering void tier was already invincible in this realm, and 21 stars was practically a myth. But not only had 2 such people appeared today, one of them was even killed on the spot by a single strike. Could it be that Ling Han was actually at the level of the mountain river tier? Bar. Luo Kaifeng rushed out like a gust of wind, his expression twisted, looking like he was going to devour someone. Luo Ba was the strongest genius of the Luo clan in 100 years, so the clan had spent enormous effort in obtaining a blood tier stone for him to refine. This would be beneficial even for cultivators of the Sun Moon tier and Mountain River tier. But now Luo Ba was killed by a single swat like a fly. How could he accept this? His eyes were bloodshot as he shouted, "How dare you? You dare to commit murder within the academy? I will kill you." He reached out blatantly, one palm open, and made a clapping motion towards Ling Han. When a cultivator of the Sun Moon tier attacked, even if he was only at the minor levels, how terrifying would his power be? If Ling Han were to take the hit, he would definitely be crushed to death. How could his body of level 1 godly metal withstand the almighty attack from a cultivator of the Sun Moon tier? Really too shameless. Li Weiwei was stomping her feet in the distance, yet she was powerless, standing too far away to block the attack. Ji Yinner also furrowed her long, shapely eyebrows but consoled Li Weiwei. Rest assured, the elites of the academy won't let him mess around. True enough, when Luo Kaifeng made his move, both Zhang Deman and Wei Qianshu also moved at the same time and intercepted him, saying, "Brother Luo, please control yourself." The 2 of them had joined forces and naturally blocked Luo Kaifeng's attempted attack with ease. Ling Han appeared calm. He did not feel even the slightest bit of nervousness. This was the academy. If Luo Kaifeng was allowed to commit murder here, that would really be a joke. There had to be other elites at the higher levels of the sun-moon tier, or even at the level of perfection thereof, who were quietly monitoring the academy and could make their move at any time. It was just that there was no need for them to show themselves earlier. Ling Han put away the pile of true origin stones on the ground. This was a stake earned from the bet. It was a pity that Luo Ba's body couldn't be taken away by him. There ought to be a lot of good stuff inside his spatial spirit tool. This brat killed a member of my Luo clan. Am I supposed to just let him go? Luo Kaifeng sneered. He was well aware that he couldn't kill Ling Han on the spot, but deliberately put up a front of uncontrollable anger in order to prepare for the excuse which he would later give. Old foxes like him might be impulsive, but would also promptly settle down. The instant that he'd rushed out, he had already thought of an idea. Zhang Deman humphed and said this was a duel to death. Both sides had agreed to it. If one party had died in battle, then that person could only blame himself for being inferior in strength. That's not what happened here. Luo Kaifeng shook his head and said solemnly, before I had clearly heard that Luo Ba said, "Please stop," and I concede defeat, but the evil brat neither cared nor acknowledged it, and insisted on striking out. This doesn't conform to the rules of a duel to death. But when the others heard the words of Luo Kaifeng, all of them cursed inwardly, had all seen plenty of shameless people, but never one so shameless. Was this person truly an elite of the sun-moon tier? How could he be so shameless? Luo Ba was killed on the spot by Ling Han with a single blow, so how would there be any time for him to admit defeat? In fact, Luo Kaifeng couldn't care less. For people like he who had achieved such a high status, would he bother with the views of others? If he was unhappy, he could directly suppress and kill anyone. How come I didn't hear anything? Zhang Deman queried, feeling displeased. Then one could only say that the cultivation of Brother Zhang is still lacking slightly. Luo Kaifeng said laughingly. He looked over at Wei Qianshu with a cool gaze. Brother Wei must have heard it, right? Wei Qianshu felt shocked. The other party's sentence was full of threats. If he said no, then it would be directly going against the Luo clan. He himself was fearless, even though he did not have any powerful backing. He had reached the height of his current cultivation based on his own strength. However, it did not mean that he had no descendants. It wasn't as if he did not know about Luo clan's conduct. They would do anything. Which was more important, conscience or family? Was a cultivator from a small world more important than his own family? Wei Qianshu sighed inwardly, saying, I seem to have heard Luo Ba said concede defeat. He used the two words, I seemed, so as to leave some leeway for himself. Zhang Deman was seething with anger. This was really too shameless. But, like Wei Qianshu, he was also a lone cultivator without any powerful backing to support him. In his heart, he was aware that if the Luo clan wished to manipulate the outcome at any cost, they could practically twist the facts to their favor. Luo Kaifeng, you've done so many shameful deeds. Have you no fear of ghosts knocking upon your door in the middle of the night, or being unable to sleep in peace? He said in a low voice, Haha, I am a cultivator. What is there to fear? Luo Kaifeng said softly, then turned to look at Wei Qianshu. Brother Wei, this brat has violated the rules of the academy. I suppose he ought to be expelled? When everyone heard this, they all thought that Luo Kaifeng was ruthless indeed. Without the protection of Scarlet Heaven Academy, what was Ling Han? Any person at the level of the mountain river tier could kill him at any time. Ling Han remained calm and collected. Could the Luo clan really hide the truth from the masses within Scarlet Heaven Academy? Wei Qianshu was put in an extremely difficult position. This Luo Kaifeng not only just dragged him into a messy affair, but also intended to make him an accomplice in his sinister plan all the way. But he had already been untrue to his own convictions earlier, so now there was already no way out for him. Otherwise, he would get in trouble at both sides of the fence. He clenched his teeth and was just about to open his mouth when he saw a white shadow flash past him. On the shoulder of Ling Han, there sat a big white cat. There was nothing strange about cats. Within the imperial capital, there was quite a number of people rearing demon tigers, such as the precious flame blue-patterned tiger and the ice genesis tiger, while some could even reach the level of the mountain river tier. In contrast, the cat in front was just at the level of the shattering void tier. The problem was that everyone in the academy knew that there was one cat that couldn't be provoked. Luo Kaifeng was also stumped for words. Of course, he knew that Lord Academy Head had a cat he spoilt to no end. Whoever dared to touch this cat would be destroyed by him. But this cat actually crouched upon Ling Han's shoulder. What was the meaning of this? Just a coincidence? Or could it be? He couldn't help but shudder. If Ling Han had the backing of an elite of the heavenly body tier, then even if the entire Luo clan were to band together, there would be absolutely no match for the other party and could be killed with a single finger. Meow. The white cat swept his gaze across the crowd in annoyance. Don't you all know that I am already hungry, yet you all still refuse to let Ling Han go home to prepare a meal for me? At this moment, Ling Han gave a faint smile and said, I am about to be driven out of the academy, right? Then, big white cat, you will come along with me henceforth, and have all the meat that you can eat. Meow. The big white cat nodded arrogantly. A demon beast of the shattering void tier would certainly be intelligent. Thus, it was not at all strange for it to have such a human-like reaction. However, both Luo Kaifeng and Wei Qianshu were scared out of their wits. If they were to allow Ling Han to abduct the big white cat, who would bear the consequences in the event Lord Academy Head was to discover this and flip out. Lord Cat, come over here. I have plenty of delicious food too, Luo Kaifeng said hastily. Since Ling Han could use food to tempt this demon cat, then why couldn't he use the same trick? The big white cat became agitated with anger. Did he really think that I'm just a gluttonous cat? That I would side with anyone that gave me food? If it weren't for this human called Ling Han, who had a humble enough and sincere attitude, given this Lord Cat's arrogance, no, pride, would I have agreed to befriend him? Just who do you think you are? Chapter 927 Deal. Chapter 927 Deal. Meow. The big white cat purred before charging out at Luo Kaifeng. Its speed was very swift, and there was practically none in the shattering void tier who could compare to it. But who was the opponent here? A sun-moon tier cultivator. In that case, naturally it would not pose any threat to Luo Kaifeng. But the problem was Luo Kaifeng dared not strike back, and merely kept dodging its attacks. An elite of the sun-moon tier was actually being chased around in circles by a shattering void tier individual. Probably only this demon cat was capable of achieving such a feat. After chasing for a while, the big white cat jumped back onto Ling Han's shoulder and arrogantly combed through its whiskers while unsheathing its claws. Its expression was implying, "Which one of you dares to bully my people? I will not let you off lightly." Zhang Deman could not hold back the hearty laughter that escaped him. Who would have thought that Ling Han would become friends with this big white cat that none could afford to offend? He coughed, choking back his laugh as he said, "I still stand by my views. Luo Ba did not verbally admit defeat, therefore Ling Han is not at fault. If there are no further opinions from the two of you, then just let Ling Han go back." What more could Luo Kaifeng say? That beast was Academy Head's favorite pet, and his affection towards it had even surpassed his affection for his own descendants. Even if it were the elders of the Luo clan here today, they would also have to yield. He gave a resentful humph, picked up the pieces Luo Ba's body, and stored it into the spatial spirit tool. His figure leaped, leaving immediately. Wei Qianshu sighed again. Just now, he'd been put in a difficult situation. He shook his head and also leaped and left. Many thanks to Senior for speaking up justly. Ling Han spoke in all sincerity, clasping his hands in the direction of Zhang Deman. Zhang Deman guffawed heartily and said, "Even if I did not intervene, with this cat around, nobody would dare to even touch you in the entire academy." The big white cat raised its head proudly. "I am that formidable." "I still have to thank you, Senior," Ling Han insisted. Zhang Deman nodded his head. This young man had a sense of propriety, observed etiquette, and had a pretty good disposition. Talent in martial arts was one thing, but one's disposition was also similarly vital. Otherwise, one would only become a danger to others in the future. "Go on," he smilingly said. A student dying meant that there were bound to be some loose ends to be tied, but that had nothing to do with Ling Han. Ling Han nodded and clasped his hands once more as he said, "This student shall then beg my leave." Bringing the big white cat with him, he left. This guy, it was already on more than one occasion it was scratching his head. "Don't you know that I am hungry?" After Ling Han left, the spectators that had gathered to watch the fight naturally dispersed. There was big news now. Ling Han's battle prowess had already surpassed 21 stars of shattering void tier. Big Brother Yi, Mo Junrin, gave Yi Qingyuan a light pat. Yi Qingyuan was in a daze, his body drenched in a cold sweat, as he suddenly turned around and uttered, "I kept on thinking. Supposed I were in Luo Ba's shoes. How would I counter that strike?" The conclusion was it would be an imminent death, no matter what. Mo Junrin couldn't help laughing as he responded, "Brother Yi, you could also choose not to spar with that maniac." Yi Qingyun's eyes immediately brightened as he said, "Right, I have already cultivated to the ultimate of the shattering void tier. With my talent, if I do not possess some kind of exceptional fated opportunity, I would not be able to advance a step further and break through to the battle prowess of 22 stars. But if I break through to the mountain river tier, then I will again have room to elevate myself further. Yes, that is why we only spend 100 years to reach battle prowess of 20 stars of shattering void tier. Although this maximum limit is very important, it is definitely not the most important," Mo Junrin continued. "One has to first become an immortal too. Only then would one be considered really powerful." Yi Qingyun breathed out a long sigh in relief as his self-confidence completely returned. He said, "Junrin, you are way smarter than you let on." "Am I?" Mo Junrin let out a laugh. "I am but a romantic person who enjoys playing with the flowers." At a certain place, despicable old witch let Niu out. Yowling sounds resembling beast cries rang out, followed by drum-like raps on the doors of the room. "Niu wants to see Ling Han, you ugly old woman. Quickly let Niu out." Hu Niu's entire body was leaning on the door, her small hand clutching onto the lintel of the door. She looked just like a monkey. "Nonsense." The old lady garbed in black robes grabbed at empty air, and Hu Niu was immediately drawn over without even the slightest resistance. "Niu is very angry. Niu wants to become bad. Niu no longer wants to cultivate." Hu Niu puffed out her cheeks and put both hands on her waist. "You little girl, which day have you been serious in cultivating ever since returning to the Rock Palace?" The black-robed old lady sighed. "Yin only infused the soul essence of martial arts into your body. How much you can refine and digest still depends largely on your own efforts. Niu doesn't want to cultivate. Niu wants to see Ling Han." Hu Niu was not about to listen to reason, and became even more oblivious to fear as she glared right back at the old lady. The black-robed old lady got a big headache. Only the Imperial Empress could cultivate the 3 supreme secret techniques of the mythological beast's palace, because only their milady could inherit the unique soul essence of martial arts. Even with the mystical arts in front of you, you would achieve nothing if you weren't her and didn't possess the foundation. Why did they encounter such an unreliable successor? She had been with Hu Niu for more than a year, and also came to have a considerable understanding of this lass, knowing that being fierce did not work on Hunyo, for she did not even know what fear was. "All right. I promise you, as long as you could cultivate to the Genesis tier, I will allow you to go and see that guy. But only for 3 days at most, after which you must return. Our rock palace has a great enemy, and only if you have cultivated the 3 great secret techniques would you be able to oppose them. Not letting you out is also for the sake of your own safety." The old lady offered compromise. Hunyo counted on her fingers and said, "Fine, then Nyo is going to use 3 years to cultivate to the Genesis tier." She leaned her head sideways and looked at the old lady as she said, "Rotten old lady, quickly go away. Your presence here only fuels my anger, and it's making me lose the mood to cultivate." The black-robed old lady could not refrain from shaking her head. She was also someone on the level of the overlord of her territory. Yet, facing Hunyo, she just could not muster up even the slightest bit of a temper, which showed that everyone had their weakness. "Go on, don't hinder Nu's cultivation." Hunyo waved her hand, her face filled with impatience. The black-robed old lady helplessly left, but at least now Hunyo was finally willing to cultivate properly, letting her breathe a sigh of relief. This little ancestor was really a big headache. Nevertheless, unexpectedly a genius had emerged in that small world. It was not apparent what was so particularly special about that human, but the fact remained that his son really was a prodigy of martial arts. Were it not for the fact that Rock Palace did not take in male disciples, she really would not have wanted to let the chance slip by. The Heavenly Saint Palace is currently taking in new disciples, and they have always been on quite good terms with our Rock Palace. Offering them a prodigy, a successor would definitely make them utterly grateful. Just nice, we'll be killing 2 birds with 1 stone. She swiftly decided. The Luo clan residence. Luo Hongdao stared fixedly at Luo Ba's body, both his hands clenched tightly as the flames of fury flared in his eyes. The most outstanding successor among the Luo family's younger generation was killed just like that. Although grooming a shattering void tier cultivator did not really require that big a sacrifice, the blood tier stone was truly precious, and even the thought of it caused him heartache. "We absolutely cannot let that lowlife off the hook," he uttered harshly. "But, Lord Patriarch, that fellow seemed to have some kind of relationship with Fu Hui." Luo Kaifeng said. Shivers ran through his body at the mention of Fu Hui's name, just as if the name of an elite of the heavenly body tier possessed some kind of magical power. Chapter 928. Father-in-law wants to see me. Chapter 928. Father-in-law wants to see me. Humph! He's merely on very affectionate terms with a cat. Luo Hongdao spat disdainfully. Yes. Luo Kaifeng promptly nodded in agreement. Still, it is hard to make a move in the academy. Luo Hongdao scrunched his eyebrows in a frown, though the frown disappeared just as quickly. Then he said, "We do not have to worry about that. Lord Patriarch means—" Luo Kaifeng asked in bafflement. "Go to Dark Knight Hall and put up an announcement offering a reward of 10,000 true origin stones for that scum's life." Luo Hongdao commanded coldly. Dark Knight Hall was an organization of assassins. As long as one was willing to pay, they would dare to kill anyone. This organization was very big, with branches in the 3 majestic empires and dozens of royal empires. But no one knew the whereabouts of its headquarters, who the leader was, and what kind of power he possessed. In short, even the 3 majestic empires wanted to wipe out this organization, but have never succeeded. 10,000 true origin stones for the head of a shattering void tier cultivator. This was too high a value for that lowlife. Luo Kaifeng sneered. But in this way, Ling Han would unequivocally become a dead man. Could an organization as formidable as the Dark Knight Hall fail to kill a mere shattering void tier cultivator? Even if they dared not enter the Scarlet Heaven Academy, it was impossible that Ling Han would remain inside his entire life. As for when Ling Han came out, it was not necessary for them to keep watch. Hereafter, it would be the Dark Knight Hall's business. Yes. Luo Kaifeng nodded. After Ling Han and the big fat cat returned to the courtyard, he roasted some meat to fill his and the cat's stomach, then continued with his secluded cultivation and immersed himself in the 7-kill subduing soul technique. After another 5 days, he was finally able to attain a little success and could wield it preliminarily. He stood in the middle of the courtyard and stared intently at a stone. Suddenly his eyes shone, and a sword light shot out from between his brows. Bang! It struck the stone, and it was smashed into smithereens. This secret technique is not only as simple as an assault on the spirit. Rather, it also has quite a terrifying destructive effect on material existence. However, specifically what extent it can reach still depends on what level one could cultivate the secret technique to, and the strength of one's own spirit, Ling Han appraised. The impact of this assault on the spirit could be real and spiritual. In reality, it could deal damage to one's physique, while spiritually, it could attack one's spirit. Its uses were infinite. Ling Han could not contain his joy. With the additional support of the indestructible Heaven Scroll, his spirit was incomparably tough, which could maximize the power of this secret technique. He reckoned it did not even occur to Old Man Su that this secret technique would help him so much after he had cultivated the indestructible Heaven Scroll. Pung, pang, pung, a knocking came from the door, and he went over to open it. Standing prettily at the door was the delicate Shui Yenyu, her seductively luscious and mature figure, giving off a profoundly stirring temptation, a real test of one's control. Furthermore, with Ling Han's ample imagination, it did not take much for him to clearly know how tempting the tender body that lay hidden beneath the seemingly loose and long dress was. Sensing the heat from Ling Han's ardent gaze, Shui Yenyu's lovely face was tinted with a becoming blush. She then immediately relayed, "My father wants to see you." "Father-in-law wants to see me." Ling Han mumbled. This was not that strange. He and Shui Yenyu did already make a pledge to be married, so it would be weird if there was no response from the bride's family. Now that he was being summoned after such a long delay, it was considered a bit too late already. Probably the Shui clan also thought this was merely a rumor, but when Shui Yenyu was called and questioned, they then knew it was not that simple. Shui Yenyu's face then turned cold as she said, "Don't even think you can take advantage of me. I say, although we are false lovers, we should also look the part, right?" Ling Han said laughingly, "Now there's nobody here, there's no need to act." Shui Yenyu refused frostily. Ling Han sighed and added, "A few days ago, while I was in a duel to death with someone, you did not even deign to drop by to take a look at me. Are you not afraid that others will say that you did not show enough concern? Wouldn't the act be seen through sooner then? With your strength, even if there is 100 of Luo Ba, how could it be possible to harm a single strand of your hair?" Shui Yenyu humphed. It was not like she had not sparred with Ling Han before. Even she could hardly kill Ling Han, and instead was bitten on her. "Pay!" Ling Han let out a laugh and replied, "All right, then let's go meet him. Who knows? Maybe I can even get a red packet one. Oh, right, be it being fake and considered a pretense. If I do get a red packet, then it's mine. You cannot make me return it." Shui Yenyu shook her head, then countered, "As far as being able to have marriage ties with the Zhao clan is concerned, my clan's thoughts on the matter have been very much inclined towards enthusiasm. So, during this meeting, be prepared. You will probably be under great pressure. Luckily, you're one of the left minister's men, so even if your level is low, my clan also would not dare to do anything to you. After all, before one beat the dog, one also has to see who the master is." Ling Han couldn't help a twitch in the corner of his mouth. He responded, "What do you mean before one beat the dog, one also has to see who the master is? Can't you use nicer words? Also, there's a saying that if you marry a chicken, you should follow the chicken. If I am a dog, You're not any better. Whoosh! A sword was swiftly held at Ling Han's neck as Shui Yinyu coldly declared, "Spout any more nonsense, and I will kill you." Ling Han remained unmoved and continued, "Are you going to murder your husband?" Shui Yinyu glanced at Ling Han for a moment, then retrieved the sword and tucked it away. Well, she did say that after Ling Han died, she would remain his widow her whole life. So, in a way, Ling Han was indeed her husband. Why did she never realize that this fellow also had such a shameless side too? "Come with me." She was disinterested in putting up further with Ling Han's nonsense. She wanted to save herself further frustration of being annoyed by this guy. As the two went out, Shui Yinyu had initially intended to walk in front. However, Ling Han persistently proceeded to walk by her side. Furthermore, he was very close. Just when she was at her limit and was about to lash out, she heard Ling Han's soft words as he moved close to her ear and mumbled, "Senior sister, don't forget! Once we're out through the door, there are many eyes watching us." His warm breath caressed her face and neck, drawing an immediate rose-colored flush on her cheeks. It was an irresistibly enchanting sight to behold. No man had ever been this close to her, making her get a bout of goosebumps. Previously, Ling Han's surprise attack on her breasts had made her brain immediately cease operating. In a daze, she was not even aware that her hand was held by Ling Han and she was being led. She only felt that she was stepping on cotton beneath her feet, a feeling light and fluffy and akin to strolling on a blanket of clouds atop the mountain peak. "Which direction are we heading in?" They went out through the courtyard's entrance. It was only after Ling Han posed that question that she suddenly came back to herself and hastily flung Ling Han's hand aside. She glared furiously at Ling Han and chided, "Even if it were a pretense of affection, there's no need for holding hands, right? You did it on purpose." "Just now I saw Zhao Luan's subordinates," Ling Han said, signaling in the direction behind them. "N." Shui Yinyu was surprised. She had really been distracted. "Let's go." Ling Han once again drew Shui Yinyu's hand into his grasp. This time, Shui Yinyu did not refuse and let him hold her hand. However, she couldn't prevent a reflexive blush from inadvertently creeping upon her beautiful face again. So captivating was her loveliness that even ascetics would feel turmoil in their hearts. Ling Han glanced back behind them, and a smiling expression unfolded on his face. If he made up his mind to do something, then he had to do it flawlessly. "Zhao Luan, you want to get a good look? In that case, I will let you see clearly and have a stimulating view." Shui Yinyu barely kept it together as she calmed down while being led by Ling Han all the way. Less than an hour later, they came in front of a manor. Shui clan, a fifth-tier clan. Chapter 929. You are going to be a grandfather. Chapter 929. You are going to be a grandfather. A fifth-tier clan couldn't be underestimated. Being included in the 9 tiers of clans in the imperial capital meant that they were influential, possessing an esteemed status in society that would make other people look up to them. The ancestor of the Shui clan was an elite whose cultivation had reached the middle levels of the Sun-Moon tier. He was said to have reached the late stage of the middle levels and was expected to go towards the peak. However, it ought to be impossible for him to reach the higher levels. After all, time and tide waited for no Manha didn't have that long to live. The present patriarch of the Shui clan was a 6th-ranked official of the Majestic Empire and also the biological father of Shui Yinyu. His cultivation had also reached the minor levels of the Sun-Moon tier. In the future, it would be likely that he would take over the responsibility of guarding the Shui clan from their ancestor. 8 guards had lined up at the main doors, all of whom were at the level of the Shattering Void tier. Within the entire imperial capital, probably aside from the Empress, other forces wouldn't be qualified to have cultivators of the Mountain River tier serve as guards, as it would be a huge waste of financial resources. Secondly, it would also be too conspicuous how would the Empress view such a person. With Shui Yenyu leading the way, they naturally entered the Shui clan's manor with ease. They walked towards the study where the patriarch of the Shui clan would be found. "You mustn't let the cat out of the bag," Shui Yenyu whispered to him before entering. Ling Han smiled slightly and said, "Rest assured, I will be by your side to help." Shui Yenyu stressed again. "That would really be a huge help for me," Ling Han replied with a smile. Shui Yenyu took a deep breath. Then she pushed open the door and walked in first. "Father!" she called out softly. Inside the study, there was only a middle-aged man sitting upright and reading a book. Hearing her, he looked up and swept his gaze over both Shui Yenyu and Ling Han. He then nodded. "You may leave first," he said to Shui Yenyu. Shui Yenyu was stunned for a moment. She was about to open her mouth to speak when the man glared at her. At that moment, she could only take her leave obediently. Ling Han caught her eyes momentarily with an expression that meant, "You just said a while ago that you would stay by my side and support me. How could you abandon me in the blink of an eye?" Shui Yenyu glanced at him. He could still make cutting remarks at a time like this? Just what was his heart made of? It was really too tough. She walked out of the entrance and closed the door behind her. The patriarch of the Shui clan was called Zijie did not speak or even bother to look at Ling Han. Instead, he picked up his book and continued reading. At this moment, Ling Han was observing the other party. This middle-aged man was really too handsome for words. At the very least, Ling Han knew that he was no match for the man in terms of appearance. Moreover, for a full-grown man to be born with a pair of peach blossom eyes, it would really cause others, whether male or femilito, be attracted to him. It seemed that Shui Yenyu had taken more after her father, as she not only inherited her father's exceptional beauty, but also the temperament. However, when these characteristics appeared on a man, it would make him appear effeminate. Yet, if they were found in a woman, her exquisiteness and allure would be bone-deep. Shui Zijie had no intention to speak at all, but the aura of an elite of the Sun-Moon tier had been set in motion. In such a situation, even an elite of the Mountain River tier would be trembling all over, and not even have the strength to stand, let alone a cultivator of the Shattering Void tier. The suppression of every level in the immortal realm was really tremendous, especially at the stage of the major cultivation tiers. It was said that even the legendary 5-star geniuses could not cross such a domain. For example, a cultivator at the peak level of perfection of the Mountain River tier would not be able to directly confront another at the minor levels of the Sun-Moon tier, not even if you were a 5-star genius. The so-called how many stars genius could only cross over the minor cultivation levels. Ling Han couldn't endure it anymore. No matter how tenacious his spirit was, it wouldn't change the fact that he was still at the level of the Shattering Void tier. But what did it matter? Ling Han directly sat down. "Since you won't talk, then fine, I'll cultivate, and we shall see who will surrender first." Seeing that Ling Han closed his eyes and began to calmly cultivate, Shui Zijie had an urge to smash the book in his hands into Ling Han's face. He had intended to intimidate Ling Han by displaying his strength, but it turned out that he had been bested by Ling Han. "You are Ling Han," he finally spoke up. "Is this a joke? You've asked your daughter to bring me here. So how could you not know who I am now? What could be done, though? The other party was the girl's father." Ling Han stood up and respectfully said, "Yes, that is who I am." He still had to observe the necessary etiquette. Before, the other party had deliberately given him the cold shoulder, so he sat quietly and focused on cultivating. This was a kind of response and a statement. However, when an elder asked him a question, he couldn't act arrogantly. Shui Zijie could not help but be astounded. This young man was only in his 20s, and his cultivation was still at the level of the Shattering Void tier, yet he knew when to advance or retreat calmly in such a dignified manner. Was this the domineering characteristic of a monarch? He felt a slight admiration towards Ling Han, but even so he wouldn't change his mind. He said, You are not worthy of my daughter. From today onwards, you are not allowed to see Yenyu again." Ling Han burst out laughing and said, "Lord Shui, you are way too arbitrary. You have the cheek to lecture me?" Shui Zaij could not help but laugh. Even a man of the left minister would not be allowed to be rude to an official of the imperial court, as this involved the rights of a nation. Even if Shui Zaij were to subdue or kill Ling Han, the left minister also wouldn't be able to say anything. "I dare not, nor am I." Ling Han shook his head. "I am just stating a fact. Although my cultivation level is still at the Shattering Void tier, it won't forever remain at the Shattering Void tier. Didn't the 7 generals of the Majestic Empire also start from the Shattering Void tier and work their way up step by step? The same is true for the left and right ministers." "What an overconfident guy." Shui Zaij humphed and said, "You dare compare yourself to these 9 lords?" "There is no comparison now, but it may not be the case in the future." Ling Han confidently smiled, but did not say too much, as a person ought to be modest. Yet Shui Zaij did not think that he had even the slightest bit of modesty. However, speaking of potential, who in this chaotic star's majestic empire could compare to Ling Han? As strong as Luoba had been, he was also killed in a single blow. With Ling Han having a battle prowess of at least 22 stars, who could compare to him? Haha, even if there comes a day when you reach the heavenly body tier, my daughter's youth will probably have withered away by then. She can't wait, and it's also not necessary for her to wait. Shui Zaij waved dismissively. "This will be the one and only warning. Do not see my daughter again. Otherwise, I will make you regret it." Ling Han smiled lightly and said, "Is father-in-law not aware that you are going to be a grandfather?" "Pooh!" Shui Zaij completely lost it as he directly choked in shock. This practically struck him like a thunderbolt from a clear sky. His precious daughter was actually deflowered by this young man. Not only was she deflowered, but even got pregnant with his grandson. If he were to calmly think about it, Ling Han had just arrived in the immortal realm for only a month. How could it possibly happen? But now that he was completely lost in his own thoughts on the word grandchild, he could barely think straight. "Yenyu!" he roared suddenly. Shui Yenyu was waiting at the door. After hearing her name being shouted, she quickly pushed open the door and entered the room, only to see that all her father's hair was completely standing on ends while his eyes were practically spurting out fire. He had completely lost it. She couldn't help but wonder what Ling Han had said to her father that actually caused the latter to fly into such a rage. You! Shui Zaij pointed at Shu Yenyu, so angry that he could not speak. Ling Han reached out and said, "Father-in-law, if you are to blame someone, blame me. Get lost. Get lost now." Shui Zaij waved them away repeatedly. Now, he only wanted to be alone to digest such an astonishing piece of news. "Let's go." Ling Han pulled at Shui Yenyu and ran. Shui Yenyu couldn't make heads or tails of the situation. Only when they had left the Shui clan's manor did she ask, "What did you say to my father?" "Oh, I was afraid that he would break us up. So I said that you're already having a bun in the oven," Ling Han answered casually one. "What's a bun in the oven?" Shui Yenyu asked blankly. She was still very pure and was totally clueless on the matters between a man and woman. What are you laughing at? Spit it out. It means that your father is going to be a grandfather soon." Shui Yenyu was stunned for a moment before she finally recovered, and her pretty face became filled with killing intent. "Ling Han, I'm going to kill you." She began to chase Ling Han, brandishing her sword. Chapter 930, Assassin. Chapter 930, Assassin. Shui Yenyu chased Ling Han for a while, but had to admit that it was actually a very good idea. At least for now, it could silence the Shui clan. Even if the Shui clan wouldn't mind sending her off to the Zhao clan, how could General Zhao accept a daughter-in-law who was already pregnant with the child of another man? Since she decided to pretend to be a married couple with Ling Han, she had already felt a certain kind of preparation. However, preparation and getting used to it were two entirely different matters. This was the reason why she flew into a rage out of humiliation and was chasing Ling Han with killing intent. However, she eventually accepted it begrudgingly. But she was still furious, so she completely ignored Ling Han and abruptly turned to leave in a huff. Ling Han couldn't help laughing. We were already pretending to be a husband and wife. What difference would a child make? When he thought about children, he couldn't help but miss his son. Would his son still recognize him when they met again? Although he was quite confident it would easily take more than 1,000 years for one to reach the level of the mountain river tier, and how many more years to reach the heavenly body tier. Even if he was a genius and could shorten the period by 10 times, it would take him thousands or even tens of thousands of years. At that time, his son would already be a great-great-grandfather. There was no use worrying. On the road of cultivation, one had to advance step by step. At least for now, he wouldn't be able to leave the chaotic star's majestic empire. He could only keep saving his strength while figuring out a way to go about it. However, the immortal realm was really too massive. First of all, the Rock Palace was definitely not located on the Joint Peace Planet. In that case, once things involved an intergalactic journey, it would take years of few if the journey was short, but a long journey could take decades or even centuries. Moreover, the corporeal body as such would not be able to directly cross universe. It would be useless even if he could fly by controlling the regulations of the immortal realm, as the speed would be too slow. One had to use a god tool for flying, and a high-grade one that would be able to endure long periods of flying and withstand the sudden outburst of perils in the universe at that. For example, meteoroids, black holes, and the turbulent flow of stars that could make elite immortals be consigned to eternal damnation. Upon entering the universe, there would be no room for fooling around, so one had to be fully prepared. Ling Han shook his head. It would be better to be sure and steady. He'd first advance his strength to 20 stars, and after stepping into the immortal realm, raise his cultivation level via consumption of alchemical pills. Perhaps he might be able to reproduce the miracle back in the small world and attain the level of the heavenly body tier in the shortest time. As long as he could reach the level of the heavenly body tier, he would be able to leave the chaotic star's majestic empire in a dignified manner. Being such an elite, how could he be held hostage? Ling Han felt a sudden apprehension as a strong sense of crisis arose in his heart. His spirit was extremely strong indeed, and could almost emulate one at the minor levels of the mountain river tier. Naturally, he also had a strong ability to sense danger. Swoosh! The cold tip of a blade flashed past, diagonally from the rooftop of a building straight to his chest, where his heart was located. This was a black short arrow which exuded a terrifying coldness from the tip of the arrowhead. At this moment, Ling Han had to make judgments and choices. The power of this arrow ought to be from someone at the minor levels of the mountain river tier. He had exchanged blows with Shui Yanyu, so he was able to make such an assessment. The problem was whether this arrow was made of godly metal, and whether it could penetrate his body. He couldn't help but clench his fists. Xiao! As the arrow landed, Ling Han's entire being was directly jolted until he was flung into the air. Pung! He somersaulted in the air for a few times before falling onto the ground, where blood immediately gushed out of him. Hee! A man in black clothing jumped down from the top of the building. His body was light, and he did not make even the tiniest bit of sound. Even his face was covered with a black cloth, revealing only a pair of sparkling eyes. He was merely at the level of the shattering void tier. Was I a bit too cautious? The man in black said to himself as he pulled out a short blade and walked toward Ling Han with the intention of severing Ling Han's head. As an assassin, if he didn't bring back the target's head, how could he prove that he was the one who had assassinated the target? He walked to Ling Han's side, grabbed the other party's hair, and was about to slash his blade across his neck. All of a sudden, however, he was shocked Ling Han's chest wasn't stabbed with an arrow. Being an assassin with a rich combat experience, his ability of adapting to sudden accidents was also extremely swift. He covered his entire body with origin power at once, and his right hand, which held the short blade, proceeded to slash towards Ling Han's neck. He didn't know how Ling Han had managed to escape that arrow, and even deliberately fooled and led him to a trap, but when a cultivator of the Mountain River tier came up against another of the Shattering Void tier, the latter would definitely be crushed. At such a close distance, what kind of tricks could the other party play? Even if worse came to worst, he had also used origin power to cover his entire body. Even if 1,000 cultivators of the Shattering Void tier were to simultaneously strike against him, it also wouldn't hurt him. In any case, he was already standing in the safest and most advantageous position. However, could things really be as what he had expected? Ling Han revealed a smile. Suddenly, he condensed the strength of his spirit and directed it towards the other party. 7 kill subduing soul technique. With the spiritual attack, the black man immediately showed a trace of confusion and fell unconscious. Ling Han seized this opportunity to wrap the other party with his divine sense and put him inside the black tower. Ding! It was at this moment that the short blade cut across Ling Han's neck. But inside the black tower, Ling Han was a true god. As it fell to the ground, this short blade immediately turned to powder. So what if it was made of godly metal? Ling Han suddenly had a thought and condensed the metal powder back together again. He should not to waste it, could recast it to make an arrow. Now, his strongest killing technique was the annihilating Dragon Star arrow, but there was a huge problem. Shooting an arrow was equivalent to shooting away a great amount of wealth. With Ling Han's current strength, the 7 kill subduing soul technique would only have a momentary effect on an elite at the minor levels of the Mountain River tier. The man in black immediately regained his consciousness and could not help but sneer. I've underestimated you. Not only are you extremely daring, your defense is so amazing that you could take 1 hit from my arrow but not get wounded. Hey, where is this place? He immediately expressed shock. This place was definitely not the former alley, but some boundless grassland. It transformed, or was this the art of illusion? Ling Han gave a slight smile. His body could naturally take a hit from a cultivator at the minor levels of the Mountain River tier. It was difficult to disperse the power from the hit, so he was flung into the air. However, he still managed to control it. When he landed on the ground, he took the opportunity to hide the arrow inside the black tower, and then used the blood of a demonic beast to replace his own blood in order to make the other party think he'd been hit. It was all brainstormed and executed in a flash. Even Ling Han was extremely satisfied. Cultivator of the Mountain River tier had been captured alive. How could he get close to the other party if he did not cause his opponent to let down his guard? Even if the 7 kill subduing soul technique was effective, he also wouldn't be able to get close to the other party by the time he'd rushed to the other party's side. The latter would already have regained consciousness. After getting hit once, it would be difficult to make the other party fall for the same trick twice. Ling Han had undoubtedly created a miracle, had captured a cultivator of the Mountain River tier despite only being at the level of the Shattering Void tier himself. Even if he were to speak of this to anyone, no one would believe him at all. Wouldn't this be an inconceivable fantasy? It was akin to a cultivator of the body refining tier being able to kill another of the Shattering Void tier. It was simply ridiculous. You didn't just underestimate me, but practically look down on me. Ling Han shrugged. Tell me, who sent you to kill me, and what is your identity? Huh? The man in black sneered. Was this not the biggest big joke? The other party was actually interrogating him. A Shattering Void tier cultivator? His expression turned serious, and killing intent burst from him. Cut the crap. Let me send you to hell. Chapter 931, Ninth King. Chapter 931, Ninth King. The black-robed man moved and delivered palm strike in Ling Han's direction. Ling Han neither dodged nor ducked and allowed the other person to land a direct hit. Utterly calm, he said, "You are now in my grasp. If I want you to live, you will. If I want you to die, the only path that lies ahead of you is death." Pung! This palm strike landed solidly, but Ling Han did not take even half a step back, as if the man had just given him a light pat. How could this be? The black-robed man was so shocked he felt his hair stand on ends. This had surpassed his imagination, and he felt a fear of the unknown rise up in him. Ling Han smiled and said, "Welcome to my world." "Illusion! This all must be an illusion." The black-robed man took a few consecutive steps back. He'd experienced a momentary loss of consciousness just now. It had to be in that instant that he had fallen into this trick. Everything he saw and felt now had to be false. Ling Han stretched out a hand and pressed down as he said, "Looks like I will have to deal you some serious punishment first." How strange. I am obviously not one who enjoys employing violence, so why would there always be someone to force me to do so? Hong! A huge mountain appeared and pressed down on the black-robed man. The black-robed man was abruptly and undoubtedly crushed onto the ground. The mountain was like godly metal, its weight frighteningly heavy, and the black-robed man had no choice but to employ his full effort to stand up against its weight. Yet his whole body was staggering and on the verge of collapse. He absolutely would not be able to hold on for long. Ah! A terrible scream burst out of him as over a dozen bones in his body were instantly broken. Ling Han, meanwhile, raised his hand slightly to avoid directly crushing him to death. Ling Han waved his hand once more, and the black cloth on the black-robed man's face instantly vanished, revealing an extremely common-looking face. Walking on the streets, he belonged to the category that wouldn't even garner a second look. But one had to understand that once one had reached a mortal level in his cultivation, he would naturally bear an unearthly air and could hence be easily differentiated from normal mortals. Strange. Ling Han's curiosity was stirred. Sitting down cross-legged on the ground, he asked, "You are an assassin, correct? You have deliberately cultivated some kind of cultivation technique that allows you to look more ordinary." The black-robed man merely yelled in pain. As an assassin, before learning assassination techniques, he had to first experience various torture, and he would only be accepted after he had successfully passed through them without breaking. It was to ensure that even if he failed his mission, he would not reveal the secrets of their organization. Although he was screaming very terribly, he did not have the slightest intention to beg for mercy. Ling Han smiled slightly and said, "Here I am a real god. There are only things I haven't thought of, but none that I cannot do. If you endure so well, then I'll try out all the punishments I can think of on you." As he continued to cruelly torment the black-robed man, he continued cultivation. In any case, he could not waste the time. The black-robed man was very determined, but after half a day he gave up. In the Black Tower, his pain was magnified 100-fold. Even using a small knife to lightly cut his skin brought him pain that sank right to his bones and straight into his spirit, causing the willpower that he was so proud of to crumble completely. "My name is Meng Yi, a junior assassin of the Dark Night Hall," he spoke, his eyes staring straight ahead like an idiot's. Ling Han listened. So it turned out that someone had made a request to the Dark Night Hall, giving out 10,000 true origin stones as a reward for his life. This was an incredible amount, yet it was offered only to take the life of a shattering void tier cultivator. Those in the minor levels of the mountain river tier, or even middle levels, would become restless to earn such easy money. This was practically a gift. Meng Yi was only a most low-ranking assassin. He naturally could not possibly know who his employer was. He had only been lucky to be the first to accept this mission. Of course, from the look of things now, his luck was actually exceptionally bad. It may be the Luo clan or Zhao Luan, and could also possibly be the Shui clan, or could be others who are jealous of me. Ling Han rubbed his chin and could not help but laugh. He had just arrived in the immortal realm a few days ago, yet he had already made so many enemies that he could not identify who would go so far as to hire assassins to take his life. Was this a success or a failure? It should be a success, right? As the saying goes, only a mediocre person would not garner envy. I am a genius, which is why so many want to kill me. Ling Han was very good at cheering himself up. He sent this assassin into exile in the Black Tower. Of course, he had robbed the latter of all his possessions. There was a sum of 164 true origin stones on him, 17 arrows, and a total of 7 bottles of various alchemical pills. As an elite cultivator of the mountain river tier, why are you so poor? Ling Han shook his head. Really, even he was richer. What he did not know was that Meng Yi had spent all his wealth on those arrows. Every one of them was forged from godly metal. And though the immortal realm did not lack godly metal, and these arrows were only forged from level 1 godly metal, they were still a very great expenditure. Added with the amount he had spent on alchemical pills, it was actually very impressive that he was still left with over 100 true origin stones. Even the Scarlet Heaven Academy only gave a genius like Ling Han a monthly allowance of 2 true origin stones as a reward. Ling Han exited the Black Tower and returned to the academy. This time, the Dark Knight Hall had failed in their assassination, but they would definitely not give up just like this. Hence, the assassin that came the next time would definitely be even more powerful. It might be a middle-level assassin, a high-level assassin, or even a copper-plated assassin. From Meng Yi, Ling Han had understood that the Dark Knight Hall's influence was very powerful, and their branches could be found in practically every empire and city. The assassins in this assassins organization were divided into 6 ranks. From the lowest rank to the highest rank, they were junior level, middle level, high level, copper-plated, silver-plated, and gold-plated. This hierarchy was not based on the cultivation levels of the assassins, but rather the number and ability of the targets they had assassinated successfully. The more people they killed and the higher the abilities of their target, the higher the grade they would attain. In this way, they could rise through the ranks. Thus, a middle-level assassin could possibly be even stronger than a copper-plated assassin. However, ordinarily, the higher the rank of an assassin, the more powerful they would be. After all, there were few exceptions. Still, it's not a good idea to keep being hunted down, but what can I do? Ling Han scratched his head. It seemed like he really did not have any way to solve this problem, and could only try his best to be as cautious as possible. After returning to the academy, Ling Han tossed all his worries to a side and focused on cultivation. He was sure that even the Dark Knight Hall would not dare act boldly in the imperial capital. Additionally, he also had the Black Tower, so things had not reached the extent that he needed to worry about danger to his life. 3 days later, Ling Han was summoned by the left minister. The competition between the 3 empires would begin very soon, and the Chaotic Star's Majestic Empire had to confirm the candidates that would participate in the arena battles. This was a grand occasion. Thus, not only was the Chaotic Star's Majestic Empire conducting a selection, even the royal empires that were subordinate to their rule were sending out their respective geniuses, determined to exert their own efforts. After all, if the Chaotic Star's Majestic Empire did not obtain good results, they would be embarrassed as well. This was a relationship wherein glory for one meant glory for all, and loss for one meant loss for all. Ling Han went to the left minister's residence first. Then, personally led by the left minister, they headed to the residence of the 9th king. The 9th king had the surname of Hu and the given name of Feiyun. She was one of the 9 kings of the Chaotic Star's Majestic Empire, and her authority could be claimed to extend to all levels of society. And yet, the unbelievable fact was that this 9th king was actually only in the middle levels of the mountain river tier. The power of the 9 kings was above even the left and right ministers and the 7 great generals, but Hu Feiyun was only in the middle levels of the mountain river tier, So how would others be willing to submit to her authority? Because she had the protection of the Empress of the chaotic star's majestic empire. That was how. About 700,000 years ago, the chaotic star's majestic empire actually had an 8th general, and at that time there were only 7 kings. The 7th king, ranked in the last place, similarly was only in the mountain river tier, and that general had not taken her seriously. He had even taken liberties with her. In the end, the Empress of the chaotic star's majestic empire flew into a towering rage and directly crushed this general, with his whole clan being eliminated right afterward. From then onwards, no matter who it was, they would be respectful towards the 9 kings, because the Empress had said once before that seeing the 9 kings was equivalent to seeing her.